Good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the Burns Township Board of Education. The board has already met in executive session. We saluted the flag at that time. Right now, just take the roll call of everybody here.
Mr. Amin?
Here.
Mr. Molinari?
Here.
Mr. Rashio?
Here.
Ms. McKeon?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Mr. Solomon?
Here.
Ms. Light?
Here.
Ms. Chipak?
Here.
Ms. Hira? Absent. We do have a quorum.
Okay, statement of public notice is posted on our website, and it's also in hard copy here. So just a couple highlights. The board welcomes the public's comments. You will have 2 opportunities for public comment. First one being public comment on agenda items. The second one being public comment on whatever's on your mind. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, on point and respectful. And that brings us up to student representative, Mr. Swan.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As many of you know, I'm Kyle Swan, the Vice President of the Student Body, Student Government. Thank you all for having me here tonight. I apologize for my absence at the last meeting and any confusion that it caused. I'd like to thank Mr. Markarian for ensuring that an email was sent to Petra and I before this meeting, and we will guarantee the presence of a student representative at every meeting going forward. To start off, Ridge's Senior Talent Show will be returning on April 6th, formerly known as Mr. Ridge. The new and improved Ridge's Finest is an awesome opportunity for seniors to perform and share their talents with their peers. We encourage all interested seniors to sign up by February 3rd. The link can be found in the Ridge Student Government Instagram page, on the daily announcements, and in other email reminders about the upcoming event. We look forward to seeing what Ridge's Finest have to offer. The class of 2024 is hosting a t-shirt design contest for their senior shirts. Current juniors have until February 12th to submit a unique theme or design that represents their grade at Ridge. The design contest winner will receive a $25 gift card. If you're artistic or skilled at graphic design, we encourage you to consider participating. Additionally, the class of 2025 is running a Chick-fil-A fundraiser. Fill out the Google form found in the Friday folder at Daily Announcements by this Friday, January 27th, and pick up your lunch at the end of the day on the following Wednesday, February 1st. Speaking of February 1st, the half day will be our 3rd wellness day of the school year. Students will not have any academic classes, rather, will participate in activities focused on interpersonal relationships, kindness, and compassion. Maintaining the Wellness Days theme into February, Ridge will be hosting Kindness Grams from February 13th to 17th. Show your appreciation for a special staff member and brighten their day by sending a short note that week. In less exciting student government news, the vandalism of our bathrooms has persisted into the new year, resulting in a series of closures across the school. We understand and share in the discontent of the student body and implore the small number of vandals to stop destroying the facilities for the rest of us. Student government will be putting up flyers in the upcoming days to reiterate this message. To assist students in finding an open bathroom and reduce travel time outside of class, the administration has begun putting up the locations of open bathrooms in the sign-out form to leave class. We hope that all the bathrooms will be up and running soon. Ridge Winter Sports had an exciting weekend. Ridge girls basketball beat Pingree on Saturday, and Ridge boys basketball crushed North Brunswick. On Friday, Ridge boys ice hockey tied Northern Highlands in an exciting 1-1 game. Ridge's ski team had its first race at Blue Mountain on Friday, with the girls coming in 2nd place. Furthermore, boys swimming and girls swimming and wrestling all continue to have winning records on the season. Keep up the great work. The second marking period of first semester ends this Thursday. Report cards will be available on Friday afternoon. We congratulate the student body on their efforts over the first half of the year and look forward to starting the second half of the year on a good note. Students, please continue to support your peers, friends, and siblings in their studies, mental health, extracurriculars, and more. As the dreary winter weather persists, let's continue to make Ridge a warm, welcoming, and happy place for everyone. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Kyle. Does anybody have something for our student representative? No? Well, you're more than welcome to stay. If your studies or you have other obligations, you're free to leave as well. Okay. All right, that will bring us to Board President's comments. I just have two. Fun one first, just draw everybody's attention to this Sunday. The Berners Chinese Association will be having a New Year's event at Ridge High School. I think it's great when the different cultures in our town can be showcased and shared at our facilities. So if you're interested, please check out their website for all the information. I would go myself. I actually have a personal commitment, but just want to draw people's attention to that. Second, I know the notice of the health curriculum being discussed during board forum is drawing some interest. I'm going to hold off on commenting until then after hearing the public comments. And that brings us to board presentation. So we're going to go down to the audience, and Ms. Fox will do the presentation on class size.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight to join us for our board meeting this evening. My name's Nick Markarian. I'm the superintendent, and Ms. Fox and I will kind of be tag teaming a bit as we talk about our class size report for 2023-2024. Ms. O'Connell, our Director of Special Services, was also kind enough to join us if there's any questions on some of our special education slides as well. Oh, well, that would answer that. Just got to reach around to the other side, right? Thanks for noticing. No, that's okay. I didn't notice. Okay, we're connected. So, class size report, we typically do this report each winter as we prepare our consideration for the budget going forward. It's one of the tools that we use to kind of take a look at where we stand overall with class size, staffing, and obviously the ratio that gets created when you look at the number of students and the number of teachers and start to do a little bit of simple math. You can get a sense of how your different programs are staffed. So we take a look at this each fall, typically in each winter rather, typically in January or February as we're working our way through the budget process in the winter. So just to give you a sense of enrollment over the last handful of years, what you see there in the 22-23 column is as of January. What you see in the 23-24 column is as a result of the demographer's report that was done in November of 2019. So we start by taking a look at our elementary schools and the core content, meaning the general education classes that we typically have our students thought of in homerooms. The number of homerooms that you see in each grade is represented in the column labeled section count. So it's a pretty simple bit of math there, taking a look at the number of students in each grade level at Cedar Hill School and dividing by the number of sections, or homerooms, if you will, that we have on each grade level to get an average class size. And at the bottom, you can see that overall, the building class size for those homerooms is about 21 students. Each of our elementary schools also has special education programs running in them. One of the things that is important to note on this slide is that sometimes students are represented multiple times, depending on the needs of their IEP and what that IEP calls for. They may be receiving resource room in some content areas, but receiving in-class support instruction in other content areas. So that's why you have to keep in mind that some students are counted more than once in the different rows, but you get a sense of the average class size looking at it from a program perspective. Looking through the other 3 elementary schools, the same information is presented. Again, the number of students in each grade level, the number of homerooms in each grade level, and working out average class size. As a guide, the district strives to maintain kindergarten, first and second grade classes at 22 or less students, and in grades 3, 4, and 5, we try to hit 25 or less students. Same concept I described before when talking about Cedar Hill is represented here at Liberty Corner. Here, you'll note that LLD classes were relocated this year for the first time to Liberty Corner School. But the same is true when you take into account the in-class support students and the resource room students. They may be counted more than once. Mount Prospect School, homeroom sections, kindergarten through 5th, and the average class size in each grade, as well as the building, is running at about 20 students per homeroom class. Keep in mind, we do have the preschool programs at Mount Prospect School specifically. We have some half-day preschool and full-day preschool programs. They're not represented here, obviously. Pre-K at Mount Prospect School, we have our autism program classes, and you can see the number of homeroom sections that we have for that program. You can see our half-day program in the next row. Call that our PALS program. So those students are in school for half a day. Our grade 2 through 5 program for students with autism. Note that our kindergarten and first grade program for students with autism was moved to Oak Street this year, so you'll see that on another slide. And then finally, like our other elementary schools, Mount Prospect also has students receiving in-class support or resource room instruction, and those students are represented in the last 2 rows. Oak Street School, regular homeroom sections from kindergarten to 5th grade. Those general education sections are running at about 20 students on average. And here you have our resource and in-class support students in the first 2 rows, and the students in the program that was relocated from Mount Prospect for our ABA instruction for students with autism. That's the kindergarten and first grade program that was previously being run at Mount Prospect School. And that relocation took place because of program growth and where we had available classroom. So in order to accommodate the increase in that program's growth, we did relocate 2 sections from Mount Prospect School to Oak Street School. And Jean will correct me if I'm wrong. 3, thank you. Okay. So, William Annan Middle School, and I have to really thank Ms. Fox. She did a lot of work here with the department supervisors, breaking out some of the elective work as well as each of the content areas. So I'll let her take the high school, but I'll share with you the middle school. Obviously, we take a little bit of a different approach because of the way the middle school master schedule is built, looking at all of the different sections across grades. This is in aggregate for grades 6, 7, and 8. When we look at each of the content areas, the class sizes from English arts, English language arts, health, mathematics, and so on, you can see that those class sizes range on average between about 20 and 26 students per class. The bottom row there aggregates all of the different support class programs that we have running in grades 6, 7, and 8. We have many support class topics for our students. These are typically general education support classes in literacy and mathematics, study skills, and English as a second language. In the rightmost table, you'll note that there are some electives that run at the middle school when we start creating sections of electives. We have electives within social studies, fine arts, music, dance, theater, and technology education. And you can see the class sizes on average there. You'll note that that social studies section seems to jump out with 11 students. The reason that that occurs is that there are 2 semester classes for a social studies elective, so you have one section running in the spring and one section running in the fall, and it breaks out that way. Okay, we typically take a look, as I mentioned earlier, with our K-5 instruction. We look at a guideline of about 22 students at the most for K-1, 2, and 25 for grades 3, 4, and 5. When we get into the high school and the middle school, we start to look across our sections, and we take note of things where it appears that the average class size is less than 15 students, and we also focus on where it's less than 10 students. Because as we're going forward, obviously we want to make sure that we are aligning our resources to the best of our ability, and where class size gets a little smaller, we want to try to have a feel for why that's happening. So you can see the way this table is laid out. You see the number of sections. That's a class, a teacher's class, period 4. How many sections of social studies are running in the building, grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? We have 50 sections across 6th, 7th, and 8th grade of social studies classes. You saw the overall average on the prior slide. What this chart shows you is that of those 50 sections, 2 of them are less than 15. Mathematics has 54 sections running, none are less than 15. English language arts at the middle school, you'll see from this table, you get a feel that it's about twice as many periods or sections of instruction, because each grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th, has actually 2 periods of the day that are English language arts. So that's why it appears to be about double what the social studies and the math are, as well as the science. You'll see that it's about twice as many sections. So we have about 5 that are less than 15 students there. Science has 45 sections, world languages 46, 5 at less than 15. Visual and performing arts, you start to get into some of the elective areas. You have smaller class sizes, sometimes intentionally. For example, in photography, how many students do you want in a photography class where you're managing the the light room, the dark room, not the light room, the dark room. It's been a long day, sorry. Didn't even notice that the projector wasn't on, if that tells you anything. Okay. And then, of course, you have our tech ed classes and our general education support classes. I alluded to those numbers on the prior slide. You saw that average of about 5 students per class. That ties into this bottom gray row where you see the general education support classes. We run a lot of those, and many of them are less than 15 because we're trying to support the students with some intensive services there. The last couple of columns break out in a little further detail which specific courses are running at less than 15 students, and we break that out into 2 groups, some sections with 10 to 14 students, some sections with less than 10 students. You can see when you get into the far right column, there are very few classes with less than 10 students. Where it exists, it is in unusual circumstances. For example, our dance classes at the middle school is a fairly new program that we've been trying to grow. we were trying to respond to having a perfect score in QSAC as one of the reasons where we wanted to try to offer that opportunity for students. So that program is a little light in enrollment, as well as the theater class. Down at the bottom, of course, I've alluded to this several times, why those class sizes are small for those general education support classes to meet the needs of those students. Okay, last section here for Willimanna Middle School in terms of the way some of our special education program class sizes break out. The first two rows represent our ICS and ICR sections, the number of students, and keep in mind, many of these students are in multiple rows based on their IEPs. If they have ICS social studies and ICS math, the same student gets counted more than once. So if you were to add up that student count column, it would not represent the total number of students with an IEP at the middle school. I know that's a common question that we get because, like I said, they're counted more than once. So you can see the number of sections that we're running in ICS classes, the number of sections for resource room classes, study skills classes, and we have a couple of our self-contained programs at Willimanna Middle School in our LLD and our program for students with autism. Okay, and we'll let Ms. Fox take Ridge on.
Thank you, Mr. Markarian. The information is really fairly similar in the way it's laid out. I'll just point out a couple of the major differences. So we are showing you the class sizes in the core content, right? The required programming on the left. The class size, you know, when I look down the list, are very consistent with last year at the same or higher, actually, class sizes than last year, but within a student or two. You see that the support classes at the bottom similar to Willimanna, and they're just slightly different in the specific support classes that we offer at Ridge High School. There are some math support classes, a couple of essential elements of English language. ESL support, we run a program called MAP, which is different than what is at the middle school. At the middle school, there's a program called Viking Academy. And then we have some new gen ed support classes of study strategies, which have really taken off in the last 2 years. And on the right, so that a major difference, I suppose, between the middle school is just the sheer number of electives that are run. At the middle school, when you're looking at electives, that's our cycle programming, which all students participate in grade 6 and 7, and semester electives in grade 8 that the students participate in. But at the high school, there are far more electives. Many of them are meeting graduation requirements. Many of them are not and are just courses of either interest or meeting some program aspirations that students might have. So our class sizes are similar, but what you would notice is that in the music area, fine arts area, career and tech ed, some of those class sizes are a little bit smaller. The ELA class size of 15 represent the fact that there are just a few electives in the ELA department that run on a semester basis, and so they tend to be a little bit smaller. We have a couple of electives in the ELA department as well that are very small by design. That would be AP Research and AP Seminar, so that would cause, you know, an overall average to be a little bit lower. Similar table trying to break down, we really want to look at the classes that are below 15. That would be the ones we wanted to make sure are that low by design, by need, because we're meeting the needs of specific populations of students, trying to grow a program, and things like that. So we really look closely at the classes that are under 15 and even closer if there are less than 10 students to make sure, you know, we can't find any more efficiencies. The number of sections below 15, if you look at last year's report, are down significantly because we've made some changes in the schedule. Some of the positions last year that were not replaced through attrition when some staff retired resulted in, you know, some better numbers in this area. You will notice that the departments with the most sections below 15 would be world languages, visual and performing arts. Jump out a little bit, right? So in world languages, that can be explained in a couple of ways. First of all, American Sign Language, those classes are small by design, both as a result of what is advised by the American Sign Language Professional Organization. They're recommended to be no larger than 18. But we often find that they're, they're even smaller than that. Think about it, the students need to be able to see the teacher's hands at all times, and so they really do need to be smaller. So a lot of those you see up there listed are in the American Sign Language program. It was also a program that when we started it just a couple years ago, we were only going to run a couple of levels of American Sign Language as a good alternative for certain students who maybe didn't do that well in world languages or just had an interest and wanted a second language, but it has also exploded. And so in attaining like really quality staffing in that area to run a full program of courses for kids who want to take 4 years of American Sign Language contributes to the lower class sizes as well. If you're trying to employ the teachers and run a full program in a program that overall is small. We also at Ridge High School offer 5 world languages, which is a large number of languages. And so when you start dividing all of the levels of languages offered both at CP and honors and AP, that also drives the need for having some singleton courses where class is only offered once, which contributes as well to some of those classes being smaller. The only way to really address that would be to eliminate a language, which isn't usually, something that we want to do, but it is certainly something that we do look at least every 5 years when we review the World Languages program. Same is true in the visual and performing arts for similar reasons that Mr. Markarian spoke to. Is in the dance program, you're looking to have a very small number of dancers in the space so that they are safe and that they have room to actually dance. Some of our AP art classes are very small. You just have a couple of students in them, but they are run concurrently typical with another course. So the teacher's not just teaching a couple of students in one period of the day, it is running instead with another art class, because a lot of that work with the students ends up being independent. So we do report out on them, but it doesn't always reflect the full story of what's going on within teachers' schedules. So similarly, these are the special education classes that run at Ridge High School. As Mr. Markarian has said a few times, our ICS and our resource room numbers may include students in both groups. But then we have the study skills and the ESS study skills classes reported out here, which are classes offered to students in those very specific programs, and they are small by design, and they are typically special, almost always special education students. And we have our vocational studies program at the high school, which would include our postgrads, and our program for students with autism. So lastly, I'll report out on the option 2 numbers. Now you'll see the marking periods 3 and 4 in this chart are blank, and that's because we don't have those numbers for this year yet. We're almost finished with marking period 3. They have to wait until all of the students' requests for option 2 come in, and then pull those students out of their PE class and recreate the section. So we don't have those finalized until the beginning of the marking period typically. But in fall sports, we had 171 students who participated in option 2, and in the winter sports there was 141. In our off-site PE program, right in the first marking period, there were 69 students in the program, and in the second marking period, there are 80. And that's it, Mr. Markarian. So yeah, at this time, we'll see if there are any board member questions. Anybody have any questions, board members?
Just taking it all in.
You can always ask it at another time. Thank you. So I guess we'll return to the stage.
Okay, now we're up to superintendent's report. There are 5 items. Can I have a motion? Ms. White, second. Ms. Light, are there any questions on the items? Mr. Salmon.
So I just wanted to get some clarification on the new proposal for the Operations and Facilities Committee and how that will overlap, if or if not, with what's traditionally been in discussed in the Finance Committee.
Mr. Rashia?
I think it would complement the Finance Committee. I think a lot of, like the last meeting we had, so much of that was spent on facilities that we can break that up and separate that from finance. So we'd go over all the facilities, operational stuff, and then bring it to Finance Committee for approval.
So, okay, so like the last Finance Committee that we were at, right? Like we talked a lot, and this happens in finance traditionally. There's, I guess I would say, traditional operations stuff like contracts with Aramark and, you know, contractual relationships we have with engineering firms or contractors, things like that. Transportation, which I guess I would say are operations. And then there's kind of like the facilities part where we're, you know, building something, right? Air conditioning and stuff. So are we saying we're moving all of that stuff over to operations and facilities and then leaving what's left in finance, I guess, is if we're moving all that over?
I don't know if I would move it all over. What I was thinking was, you know, the Facilities and Operations Committee would look at what Aramark is doing or not doing, and then make a recommendation to Finance saying, okay, this contract shouldn't be renewed. We'd have to work in tandem, I think.
Okay.
Right? And the budgeting, I mean, the budgeting is all finance. So we could say Aramark's not doing a good job. They're falling down on this or that. I know they have to make us whole at the end of every year. We'd make a recommendation, maybe to finance, say, you know, put something in a contract that makes us whole every month, as an example.
Okay. I guess I'm seeing from what traditionally finance was, I'm seeing, like, you know, based on what you said, a pretty decent amount of overlap on the operations side. Facilities, I get, like, you want to separate that out and just talk about buildings and fixtures and stuff. On the operations side, I think it's a little more nebulous to me as to, like, who's doing what, and if you are facilities and operations is talking about Aramark contracts and staffing, which we were traditionally getting at finance, which I guess is, in my mind, operational, but you would take that into operations, and then some of that would bleed over into finance?
Bleed into finance. I think it would have to work, you know, very closely.
Yeah, so like, I'm looking at the last, like, Finance Committee agenda, right? The first one was Aramark. The second one was about kitchen equipment, which I guess would be now operations and facilities. The third one was about the accessibility ramp that we're planning to put into Ridge High School to get from the back of the building to the bleachers at Lee Field. So that would be
probably operations
and facilities. Then the fourth one was about the inventory for the RTU assessment, right? The rooftop unit assessment we got from the engineering firm.
Right.
Operations and facilities. The fifth one was an update from the in-house facilities team on the Oak Street roof, the turf field complex, so that's all operations facilities. The sixth one was the update on how we're going to be talking about the wrestling room and the update to the wrestling room, so operations and facilities. The seventh one was the budget, right? We're in budget time, so that's, you know, a 3 or 4 month process. And then the last one was the long-range capital project plan and maintenance items, which would be operations and facilities.
Making a recommendation maybe to finance.
Right, so like within this agenda, there was essentially the budget, right? That's what would be in finance.
Correct.
Okay. All right. What do you think about that?
I think we need it. I mean, I think times change, and I think right now this school needs a focus on facilities and operations. And finance is obviously very important, it's near and dear to my heart, but right now I think we need a committee specifically focused on that to oversee the projects or to put in motion the projects. Of course, we can't do anything without finance, but till now we've had no focus at all.
So I guess then assuming that's all right, then like, why would we want to propose, so we're like reallocating positions. So traditionally we had 4 board members that were assigned to a committee and then 1 alternate, like if a board member couldn't come or the alternate wanted to speak on a topic, they would come in and say, you know, please let me come in your stead to the meeting. So we're going to have 4 folks on the finance committee, but then only 3 folks on the assigned to it, and then only 3 folks assigned to the operations and facilities committee. So then does it make sense to flip that? Because at least in this last agenda, it was 95% of what the discussion was in terms of the previous finance committee meeting. Should we move somebody, a 4th member, to the facilities operations committee and make finance 3 people?
My personal opinion would be no. I think we'd leave that spot open on the operations committee to invite a finance person in. For instance, for you, like if you need to present to the finance committee, we'd bring you into that meeting and say, Tim.
Yeah, no, I see
Kinda
that.
see what
I'm on the finance committee. I'm the alternate for operations and facilities. So it's like,
But,
seeing the.
I think we'd leave it open so that, Robin might have an issue with something with facilities. She can come in and opine those meetings, right? It just gives us more flexibility.
I guess I was more asking, why do we need so many people on finance if really 95% of the traditional financial stuff is moving over to operations and facilities, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I
do we
agree.
need, should we take somebody away from that and move them to operations facilities, or just, because we were reducing curriculum to 3 people, wellness to 3 people, policy to 3 people, but finance and personnel are staying 4, and then operations facilities only has 3. So should we?
Well, the thought process was with some of the, and I talked to several board members about this, some of the committees having, benefiting from 4 people, especially when it comes time for negotiations or contracts or things of that nature, because you have more dedicated ears on it, whereas some committees are at 3, which gives the flexibility where, like Larry's example, Robin could go and if she had a matter of interest or concern, she could join one of the committees of 3 without worrying about it being a quorum. It also leaves spots open for board members who want to have exposure or learn about different committees that aren't at the 4-person threshold yet, to have the flexibility to do that. So I hear what you're saying, because we are moving so much from finance to operations. So I understand your thought process with that. I think in the future, I think it can always be flexible, right? We're not bound in stone for what we're doing for the rest of the year. But since it's a new committee, I think keeping the 4 eyes on finance dedicated and having that flexibility in operations makes sense.
So, okay, what's in finance other than the budget? Now, assuming this is right, like what is the 4 folks in the finance committee going to have their eyes on other than the budget?
Well, they're also going to have their eyes on everything that comes over from operations. All the proposals, they'll have to be conversant in that. Operations is going to be dedicated for that, but finance is going to have the also say in how it gets funded and when it gets funded.
Okay.
Speaking as someone who actually sat on both of those committees a long time ago when we had both of those committees, I think, I understand what you're saying about bringing things to finance after it's gone through facilities. I think that there's going to be a lot of repetition for anyone who's on both, because that's how it was before, I think, because, when you're discussing it in operations or facilities, when it comes to finance, it might not be as much detail, about the nitty-gritties of the facilities or operations, but you're still going to have to talk about it. So I think setting the agenda so that it doesn't become too repetitive would be important.
I think everybody on operations, except for Nimish, is on finance. So they're, it's the same folks. Yeah.
Just also cuts down on miscommunication between the two. If you're both sitting on operations and facilities, you'll know what to bring back to finance.
Yeah, so I hear you.
That meeting was so long. I'll be honest, that meeting was so long, that finance meeting, that splitting it up, I think it relieves the burden.
Hey, I hear you. I was finance, personnel, curriculum, all in 3 days, so I get it. But it's just to me, I get the idea to focus and split up. It just sounds like it's the same people talking about what would be the same thing, and rather than doing it in one meeting, we're doing it now in 2 separate meetings. So but I understand the point to focus. The way it's laid out, though, it kind of sounds like it's the same stuff with the same people, and then there's 1 or 2 overlaps, But that's just, I didn't see that before, so.
Ms. White?
I know I've mentioned this to you when we talked, and I would say in terms of a point that Mr. Salmon brought up, I really strongly feel that the curriculum and the wellness committees are just as important as the others, and to have as many ears as possible, consistent monthly ears on those topics, I think is really, really important. And I think we get shortchanged when we're just saying there are only going to be 3 regular people on the committee. I mean, I know even in a meeting we had, Ms. Pack mentioned she wished more people were sitting in a committee. She said, you know, but it's only 4 of us who hear it. Well, now it's going to be only 3 of us, and hopefully there'll be people that do want to come and sit in on as an alternate. But the reality is, if you don't have that date locked in monthly, like it's not on your radar. And I think that there should be more than 3 ears talking about curriculum, wellness. That's where we talk about the mental health, and the social emotional health of all of our students, of all of our staff. And I think that we really should have, 4 regular, consistent members at each of those meetings. And I would just put a plug in for that. And then I would also say, and if we're not going to, how is this going to get managed? Is it then going to be up to the chair to make sure that there's a 4th person there? And so does the chair then reach out and say, can you come to what's the plan in terms of how that 4th spot gets managed?
I would say it's up to the board member to reach out to the chair, because you don't technically need 4. 3 is sufficient according to our policies, but it would be up to whatever interested board member wanted to join any specific meeting, be it policy or wellness or what have you, to reach out to the chair and say, hey, I'm going to join this week.
That seems consistent with the policy that we had last year, that if an alternate wanted to attend, they would reach out to the chair and say that they wanted to attend.
Well, it's not consistent because last year we had 4 people on each committee, and then if somebody couldn't be there, then they would reach out to the alternate. It wasn't that there were only 3 spots on a committee. That's what I'm saying. I think that there should be, just like there are on personnel, just like there are on finance. We have people who are willing to do it. Why not take advantage of that and make sure that we do have that consistent monthly attendance at the meetings? And then when somebody is sick or somebody can't make it, then they go to whoever is the alternate and say, hey, somebody's absent, we need a 4th, as opposed to we only have 3, and every month now we're going to have to find that 4th person. That's all I was saying.
Well, I mean, of the 3 committees that have 3 people, we could just ask who wants to be in the rotation and then make a schedule for them.
Yeah, I think, first of all, there isn't a requirement. You're making it seem like we have to do this. I think it's more of an option that if it's utilized, great. And if you had 4 people, you're actually locking out somebody else from rotating in. We want to have more eyes and ears whenever possible if people wanted to participate.
Right, I understand that, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of carryover of topics, like for instance in curriculum. We may talk about, I'll use math. We might have talked about Algebra 2 at a meeting in November, and then we asked a ton of questions, and we asked, could you get us some more information? And so in December, Mr. Colmer comes back, he brings us more information with all those questions. Now those people who are sitting on the committee, they know what's being talked about. It's very productive. Now you add somebody in who doesn't know exactly what was there, what was asked, what was looked for. I just think personally, I think the same attention should be given to wellness and to curriculum, of having that consistent 4-member who are responsible for getting that information and disseminating that information. I just think when you have a alternate who, well, I'll pop in, twice a year, it's not the same information getting out there. And look, I'm willing to, you want to try this, that's fine. I'm just saying my personal opinion is I think that there should be, we've got the manpower and the women power. There should be 4 people consistently on all of these meetings. And you have people that are saying, I'm happy to do it. So to me, I'm like, take them up on that. Let's have them at those meetings. We're bringing, especially curriculum and wellness, we have teachers there all the time. We have administration there all the time, guidance counselors making presentations. I think it's really important that they know that there are 4 committed people to come and listen and share that information.
I'm for trying something new.
Yeah, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but I'm looking at the December Finance Committee agenda again, right? So item 1, Aramark. Item 2, Oak Street Roof. Item 3, Turf Field. Item 4 is an annual comprehensive financial report memo from the DOE, which had to do with when the state is going to announce state aid, which was, I think, took 2 minutes. Number 5 is flooring in the flooring project in the Ridge football locker room. Number 6 is the update on the RTU assessment that we got. So this was a finance committee meeting, which had, I would say, arguably 5 out of the 6 topics where it would be operations and facilities. 1 was probably just pure finance, I would say. So I'm kind of coming back to this, like, what's left in finance, because it's the same folks with, I think, what's left in finance, and number 2 is, like, who is the administrative counterpart? So, like, finance is the BA, on operations facilities is the...
I would imagine it's the head of facilities, right, Mr. Markarian? Right? Who's in charge of the overall facilities and upkeep?
I think you'd probably have the BA and, like we had at finance at the last meeting, sometimes Mr. Perrin and/or Mr. Larkin,
Yeah.
depending on what the agenda items were. So similar group of people that we had at finance.
But
Right.
I also think, I mean, just in my opinion here, I also think that because it was combined before, we weren't able to concentrate on other finance opportunities because we were constantly concentrating on the facilities. I think by breaking these out, it gives the opportunity to really concentrate on the finances, the budget, where the funding is coming from, coming up with new ideas, making sure that the contracts are not risky from a finance perspective for the district. So I think that it enables us to refocus ourselves more on finance, less on facilities, because we have 2 dedicated committees that deal with both.
What are the finance opportunities that were missed, that the problem, that problem that you said, the financial opportunities that we missed to discuss in depth, what were those?
I think that more attention can be given to the budget, monitoring that. We also don't, in these meetings, we don't go over all of the reports in detail.
What reports?
The transfers report, the wire transfers, the board secretary's reports, understanding why things are moving or why things are being moved around. We don't get into that in the
What are the
discussions of
things?
Finance Committee.
What's the things that were moving?
The board secretary, how the budget gets revised every month with the numbers, and you come up with another adjusted budget, what the appropriations are. We don't go into any detail and have the opportunity really to discuss that because we are so focused on the facilities and the operations. And I think by dividing those up, we can focus on understanding what's going through the budget and identifying any issues, risks, or anything to the district through the budget, as well as through making sure that everybody's held accountable from a facilities perspective, identifying the things that need to be done, and things of that nature.
So give me an example of what we would, like, we get the bills list. We see, like, we spent, $10,000 on pens and pencils or something like that, whatever. Like, is the idea to go through that in more like line item detail, like what we spent every month?
I'd like to actually have a discussion about it, and I'd also like to have a discussion that if the budget changed with the board secretary's report, to make sure that we understand why it's changing and what's giving rise to that, because that gives us all opportunities to identify if there's a different way of doing things, if there's a different way to save money, if there's things that we need to be budgeting for. By not spending the time really digging into these numbers, I think we're doing a disservice to the community and the taxpayers.
I think at this point, I'm going to break in. Does anybody else have anything they want to?
Well, I kind of want to get an answer to the question of, like, what's left?
Well, we've had that question several times right now, and she's answered several times. So, how many times are we going to reframe the same question?
I'm not trying to reframe it. I'm just trying to say, like, it's the same. I guess in my mind it sounds duplicative. I'm just. We can try. I mean, I'm not against trying it. I just want to know, like, if you have the same people discussing the same sorts of things, like, are we just having
Doing it twice. That's what your concern is, that you're now going to have 2 meetings
Now I
that
have
you're
2
talking,
meetings, yeah.
right, to do the same.
Sounds like I'm trying to weasel out of work, but I can assure you that's not it.
Or we could change the makeup of the committees to make it not overlapping.
It sounds like there's a vision there, so let's,
let's see if it makes both meetings less of a heavy lift.
If it doesn't, we nix one. We nix operations. Right?
What's that?
Well, if it's not working, if it's too repetitive, then, in a few months, we just go back to what we were doing before.
Yeah, no,
But I think the focus, the try of the focus should be there.
Yeah, right, as long as there's a plan, right?
Yeah.
As long as we're showing up to finance and like, it's not, we're kind of just hearing this on the fly of like, we want to look over the bills list and see what's the line items expenditures for the month. Like, I understand that point of it, but like, what's the plan? Like, when we show up to finance in 3 weeks, what are we talking about? And it sounds like we're talking about the bills list. Accurate?
Or we're talking about the facilities that need to be fixed and what the costs will be. Like, here's our recommendation on what needs to be fixed. These need to get fixed. Finance, figure out a way to put it in the budget.
Or the budgeting
Right?
coming up, which is a huge thing
Yeah, that's
for
3
the
months.
next 3 months.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Wait, I have a question. No, I mentioned this, I would ask. We have our meeting for wellness on Thursday, and we had a request about adjusting the time. I don't think we can adjust it for this Thursday, and Ruchika's not here to ask. But I just wanted to ask Mr. Markarian, should we just be asking Ms. Smith about this on Thursday and then talk as a group about the time? How do you want this handled?
I can't speak for Ms. Smith. Maybe the thing to do, if the board members can make it work, is to at least do the first meeting in February or the next first meeting. In the case of wellness, that comes up first.
Right, that's why we're meeting on Thursday.
Right. I mean, if it's possible for people to make that work in their schedules to get to that first meeting on the schedule that we've been following, that's what the administrators have on their schedules in terms of the meetings,
Okay.
and then maybe huddle and plan going forward. Does that time work for everybody? And, bring your calendars to that first meeting and try to sort it out.
Okay, and since you're the alternate and it's only a few days away, are you able to come? Oh, sorry.
On Thursday, I cannot be away on a business trip.
Okay, so then
Yeah,
if there's anybody else who can come, that would be really appreciated. So just send me an email.
Okay, at this point, I'll call a roll call vote on the items on the superintendent's report.
Mr. Amin? Mr. Amin?
Yes.
Mr. Molinari?
Yes.
Mr. Rashio?
Yep. Yes.
Ms. McKeon?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes? No, I'm just kidding. Yes?
Ms. Light?
Yes.
Ms. Shipak?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we're up to public comment on agenda items. Please come on up, state your name and address, and please keep it to 3 minutes or less.
Hello, Board of Ed members. Before I introduce myself, I would like to ask if I do not disclose my address and only say my name and school as I am a minor.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you. My name is Gabby, and I'm a junior at Ridge High School. We are a Girl Scout troop here today to create awareness in the Ridge community about the unsanitary conditions that we have to contend with on a daily basis. The students, teachers, and staff at Ridge have consistently set a bar of high excellence. However, our facilities have not been met to those standards. We believe this is a current issue that should be a main priority, and we recognize the township mission is to provide a superior education which results in academic excellence, responsible behavior, good citizenship, and fosters social, emotional development so that ultimately each student will be able to maximize his or her potential, become a contributing member of society, maintain a commitment to lifelong learning, achieve the New Jersey student learning standards at all grade levels. We as students appreciate that as the focus of your efforts, and in the end, creates learning experiences for us students nobody else will be able to experience. Our Girl Scout mission is similar to yours. Girl Scouting builds girls of courage, confidence, character who make the world a better place. Our way of making the world a better place is helping our community, our small communities specifically being Ridge High School. Evidence from other students at Ridge have expressed that there is a gap between the missions we both want to achieve for our school and well-being as students. To begin, the bathroom situation at Ridge is substandard. Since the beginning of the school year, the number of school bathrooms have been decreasing to the point that before winter break, the girls at Ridge only had 2 bathrooms available for use. Along with the 500-wing girls' bathroom has had a hole in the ceiling for the past year that has not been addressed. With students having to walk 6 minutes around the school just to find a bathroom, we are left with less options, and this results in the students missing more class time. We have received feedback from our own Ridge students. A sample of 106 students have responded in a survey. Of those who responded, 65% of students don't feel like they have adequate access to school bathrooms. 74% say the cleanliness of our bathrooms at our school is poor. 44% are unlikely to drink water from all the fountains, and 56% of people have seen vermin during school hours. Overall, us as students, we all feel like the conditions at our school have room for improvement, and although some of the problems have been addressed and solved, much more can be done. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaliyah, and I'm also a student at Ridge. The first issue that we want to focus on today is mice. Like other students, the 5 of us here today have encountered mice in the past, but we were under the impression that the issue was resolved last year. However, the problem remains unsolved and stands to be a major concern for faculty and students. Since October, Media Center staff have caught mice almost daily, even after setting up traps. There have been numerous sightings from students of mice running in the hallway throughout the day, and several mice have been found in classrooms and the cafeteria. There are also several holes in the ceilings, namely in the 300-wing hallway and in the 500-wing girls' bathroom, that give mice an additional route to travel. Not only is this rodent problem unsanitary, but it also has been impacting Ridge resources, like in the art room. Mice have gotten into the rooms and destroyed clay and other valuable materials. Despite their obvious unpleasantness, mice are also known to spread a wide range of diseases. While these diseases are primarily spread through direct contact, they can also be spread through indirect contact. According to the CDC, rodents can carry ticks, mites, and fleas that can act as vectors to spread diseases between rodents and people. It's also important to note that mice are nocturnal, so if students and staff have seen them during the day, we can only imagine how bad the problem is at night. According to the New York Department of Health, hantavirus is one of the most prominent diseases spread by mice. The virus is found in rodent urine, saliva, and feces, but can be released in the air through sweeping and vacuuming. I speak for the student body when I say that rodent infestation does not provide a safe nor comfortable environment for learning, and we believe that more action needs to be taken. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arabella, and I'm a junior at Ridge. The Girl Scouts in my troop and I have done a significant amount of research on preventing and reducing mice at Ridge. These are some suggested solutions we recommend and tactics that other schools have utilized to help with their vermin problems. We propose that instead of only using sticky traps, that we begin using snap traps too. We suggest weather stripping of doors and crevices to prevent entry of mice and to seal all electrical conduits, heating ducts, pipes, and pipe chases. Although potential rodent entries with gnawable materials such as rubber, plastic, or wood should not be sealed. We recommend ensuring that all windows and skylights are properly repaired to keep out rodents. Additionally, there needs to be regular inspections and cleanings to remove potential food sources. It is critical that students and staff receive comprehensive education on how their actions can affect pest management and control. This can include information on the types of pests commonly found in schools, the potential health risks associated with these pests, and the steps that can be taken to prevent and control pest infestations. An effective way to educate students and staff on pest management and control is to organize an assembly, where an expert on pest management can give a presentation and answer questions. The assembly can be a yearly event and an opportunity to keep the students and staff aware and updated on the measures that are being taken and what they can do to help. Restrictions should be continuously implemented on where food can be consumed and reducing clutter in classrooms and storage areas. Instead of using cardboard boxes, we suggest using plastic containers or sealable metal containers for storage, as they are more durable and resistant to rodent chewing. Also, it is important to keep all stored items off the floors and away from the walls, as this will make it harder for rodents to access them. It is crucial to regularly clean and maintain cleaning supplies and equipment. It is also important to have proper cleaning schedule and protocols in place and to train cleaning staff on cleaning and sanitizing. Adding more trash cans to lunch areas and other convenient locations will make it easier for students and staff to properly dispose of food scraps and other wastes. The trash cans should be lined and covered and emptied daily or more frequently if necessary. Areas like the cafeteria and any other food service locations should be pressure cleaned. Power cleaning, also known as pressure washing, is a method of cleaning surfaces using high-pressure water jets. Pressure cleaning removes dirt, grime, and other debris from surfaces more effectively than traditional cleaning methods such as scrubbing or mopping. Rodents are a pressing problem that need to be addressed, and we hope that within New Year and the new administration, this issue will finally be resolved. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steffi, and I'm a junior at Ridge High School. Ever since the beginning of last year, the bathrooms have created a lot of issues within the student body. Although I completely understand the problem with vandalism, rather than punishing students in general by limiting their ability to feel at ease when needing to go to the bathroom, other forms of discipline should be given for those who commit vandalism. Out of the 9 bathrooms, gym, PAC, 200, 300, 400, 500, and both 700 wing bathrooms, only 5 are currently available for students. Although that might not seem too little, it becomes very difficult for students to find bathrooms. For example, at the art rooms, which are located at the end of the 600 wing, and if students want to use the bathroom, they can no longer use a 600 nor 400 wing bathroom due to these closures. Not only does this inconvenience students who are forced to miss valuable educational time, but teachers as well, as they are forced to go further and further to find bathrooms. Despite these complaints, we are very appreciative of the recent efforts on this issue. We are so grateful for you guys listening and fixing many of the broken stalls. This being said, there are still many things that can be done. According to OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, there must be 6 toilets for 150 people, and that for 40 people over that number, 1 toilet is needed. Ridge has approximately 1,700 students, roughly 50% of which being female. Through OSHA guidelines, we should have at least 24 stalls. Since only 5 bathrooms are open, Ridge currently has 26 stalls available, and although this does meet OSHA guidelines, we should not be comfortable with meeting the bare minimum. Ridge, a school that has state-winning sports teams, high-achieving academics, and is a top 25 school in the state, should have access to elite facilities that make all students feel safe and happy. Every year, Ridge hosts multiple events with hundreds of participants each, and although seemingly minuscule, bathrooms greatly impact the public's idea on the school. For example, this weekend, Ridge Forensics will be holding their annual tournament with over 700 people from multiple schools and states. Other sports and activities also host large events that require top-notch facilities. Not only do the bathroom closures create difficulty for visitors, but it also impacts Ridge's overall reputation. When things as simple and crucial as bathrooms are hard to access, it worsens the public's view on the school, which is unfair to all the teachers who work unbelievably hard, students who pull endless all-nighters to achieve academic and athletic goals, janitors who work relentlessly to keep our building clean, and everyone in our community who has put time and effort into the school district. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Grace, and I am a junior at Ridge. I'm here to summarize the concerns that we have. First, I would like to begin by thanking the administration for helping to change water filters and fixing some of the broken bathrooms. Seeing these issues that have been resolved so quickly gives me hope for the problems that we outlined today. It is great to feel that we are on the same page. As you have heard from my friends, we have an ongoing problems with rodents and the bathrooms. As a student of Ridge, I find the mice issue to be very concerning. I remember being in WAMS and thinking about how great high school was going to be and how excited I was to be a part of the Ridge High School community. Ridge has been such a great experience, and the community that I have found through forensics has been really incredible thus far. But when we hold forensics tournaments, I find myself apologizing to the competitors about the conditions of our school. At one tournament in particular, a mouse ran by visitors' feet and they shrieked in fear. I apologize profusely for the conditions of the school that I love and should be proud of. Our students perform at such high levels across the board, and the conditions of our facility do not reflect the excellence of our programs. Let's face it, mice are nocturnal animals, and we see them during the day. That is a huge problem. You have heard through many voices, ours and those of our fellow students, that we see it as a major concern that interferes with our ability to learn. We hope that as you look at your budget, please evaluate this as a priority. We ask for more transparency around facility management and upgrades. As an example, the Newark Board of Ed does a great job keeping the community informed about the facility upgrades through a tab on their Bernard's BOE website. For example, you can see all the projects that they are undertaking and have progress pictures as they repair. From bathroom upgrades to HVAC installation, you can see everything that they do to make their facilities a top priority. After overhauling the Basking Ridge District website, we still do not have a place to see what facilities are being worked on. This addition would be very beneficial to the families and the students of Ridge to understand what is being prioritized. It's a new board and a new year, and we are asking for more transparency and action regarding these issues. Thank you.
Briefly, the board was informed that these students were going to come speak tonight, so while not strictly on agenda items, although maybe depending upon how you look at the operations committee discussion, we felt it was appropriate to let them have their say in case they had to get out to go back to their studies or what have you, rather than keep them late. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Jen Kluger, 26 Stafford Lane. Here on, you had mentioned earlier the board agenda item about the health curriculum. So I noticed that that was added to tonight's meeting as a board forum topic. It was, recently added. And so I have a couple of questions for you all. First, why is it being brought up now? I don't get it. I mean, I was at the BT Connect meetings, and there were, where it was discussed in groups, it was voted on in October, and so, and it was approved. So we're circling back, and I really don't understand. There was a lot of work put into it, a lot of time and effort, and now we're circling back. And so, second question is for a board, incoming board that talked a lot about transparency in the election. That was a big word. I don't understand why you're bringing it up at board forum when then we can't comment on what you've said about it. We don't know what you're going to say. So, so it's why is it going to be talked up at board forum, preventing us from being able to respond to what it is that is being discussed. So that doesn't seem like it's the most transparent way of going about this. And the third thing is, can the district provide an update regarding the percentage of families who have opted out of this curriculum, the health curriculum this year? I don't know, and that's why I'm asking, but if the percentage is very small, again, you're putting time and effort into rehashing something that was, gone on, and discussed, and we should move forward. So those are my questions for you. Thank you.
Good evening. Barbara Geary, Dryden Road. I read at the board retreat, I've read that for your board retreat, one of your topics was harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And that at your meeting, you accepted the receipt of the updated HIB reports for the district. Did you discuss that the HIBs are up 300% compared to last year at WAMS? I did share it in an email. The majority of the HIBs did not include vandalism to the school. Our Ridge student reps and the girls that came tonight shared their frustrations with locked bathrooms. They were also locked at WAMS. I've been told by multiple people within the high school community that a brick was put into a toilet at the Ridge High School bathroom. We are in a crisis here, and the current vandalism situation is going on in our schools. It's inappropriate behavior is not even part of the HIBs. We need to do something, and we need to do something now. Students, parents, stakeholders are looking to the administration and the board to do something now. Thank you.
Sherry Nelson, 195 Smoke Rise Road. I just want to thank these girls for getting up and speaking. I know it's not always easy to come and fight for your cause. And I think they did a great job tonight. It makes me sad because parents this fall were bringing up these same problems, and we were kind of dismissed. Oh yeah, we're taking care of it. And it hasn't been fixed. And we do have a new board, and you guys need the time to do that. So I also just want to say I completely agree with you splitting out your finance committee, your operations and facilities, because our facilities are disgraceful. And very specifically, I was not aware to the extent of the bathroom closures, and I'd really like to know what happens when a child with a disability is too far from a bathroom. Is that being considered at all? No bathroom in the entire building should be closed. There's a reason you have a certain number of bathrooms for a certain number of students. I mean, the girls, I can't even, I'm actually like physically upset that sick to my stomach thinking about. In our town, this is what's happening. These are the conditions of our school. So yeah, I know you guys are going to get on it, but gosh, this is just bad. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Pamela Haviland, 153 Canterbury Way. My understanding, which you will confirm or not during board forum, is that the board wants to revisit the health curriculum mandates because some of you believe it will stigmatize the students who are opted out. What about the students who are stigmatized every day by people who believe being on the LGBTQ spectrum is an immoral choice, or that students who are struggling can simply make a different lifestyle choice? Being LGBTQ is no more choice than being right or left-handed. It isn't a lifestyle, and it isn't contagious. But all students will truly benefit by having this knowledge, whether for themselves or to support another student or a friend. Additionally, students need to know about their own development. They need facts regarding choices and implications of sexual interactions, not to mention healthy relationships, and so much more that is covered in our health curriculum. If health education becomes a take-home assignment, what will the board do to ensure students are being delivered the curriculum that is mandated by the state? I do hope that in the spirit of transparency, you can share that with us thoroughly this evening. Thank you.
Excuse me, Cody Smith, 36 Royal Oak Drive. I have a few things that are much more boring than what you've already heard. And so what I'd like to talk about is the agenda itself. The agenda for tonight's meeting came out on the website late Friday evening, Friday night. I don't know if that complies with the sunshine laws, but that's not my point. It was about 2.5 pages, and there's no detail in there. So someone who wants to look at what's going to happen at the meeting and prepare, there's no information in there to prepare. There's a little bit on the Personnel Committee and a little bit on the Finance Committee, but there's basically nothing there, and I think it should be much stronger. I've made the points before, either in emails or in this forum, but I think with the new board coming in, and congratulations to the new members on the board, maybe we need to look at that a little bit harder. And then when I come here today, and this is consistent with last year, there's more detail. So the Finance and the Personnel Committee reports each have more detail. But again, there could be a better, there could be more there, and it's too hard to pick this up at the beginning of the meeting and go back to your seat and try to read it and prepare. At a minimum, that should come out on Friday or Thursday or whenever the board comes out. As to the committee reports, a couple of things on that. And here I'm not advocating that the committee reports be distributed as part of the agenda necessarily. My understanding on the committees are that when you just had that discussion, you cannot have 5 board members attend a committee meeting because then it would be a public meeting and it would have to be in compliance with the sunshine laws. So if you have 4 members on the committee and the alternate wants to attend, it's my understanding the alternate cannot attend because then that would turn it into a public meeting and you'd have different requirements for that. And I'm not advocating that the committee meetings, at this point I'm not saying the committee meetings should be open to the public. That's not my point. But with the committee reports themselves, you do that after this agenda public comment, we have nothing there. A lot of times it says that the committee report is in progress. So for instance, with the curriculum committee, Ms. White read extensive notes last year as the chair of that committee. And I'm not saying that those notes should be part of the agenda for us to look at before the meeting. I understand that what somebody might sit here and read to try to turn that in a distributable format is a lot more work. But there ought to be something that comes out to tell us what's going to be there that we can read before that in order to understand what's going to happen. I think the Finance Committee is probably the best of a bad system. At least there's something there. Again, there's usually something in this report, but even in that report, it doesn't include budgets. It might say we're going to hire somebody for $50 an hour, but it doesn't give any min or max or how much we think that that's going to cost. And on the committee discussion tonight, Mr. Salmon mentioned what was in the December committee, but if you look tonight, there's 14 items on the Finance Committee, and I think probably only number 14, Boswell Engineering, would be something that would fall under the purview of the new Operations Committee. So I think it's a good idea to split those committees and to try to do that. Okay. So anyhow, so that's basically my point. And then on the timing of this too, when you come through here, you vote after public comment. We have public comment, and then you discuss the committee meetings, and then you vote. So again, you discuss it and vote on it after public comment has occurred. So again, we have no basis to provide any input. And to the whole point that was made last year about, well, just come up during the non-agenda items and comment about it, by then the vote's occurred, it's meaningless. So even if you're going to listen to us, at least give us the courtesy of listening to us before you vote on it. Thank you.
Karen Gray, Dawn Drive. I have a couple of comments about the conversation regarding the committees. It's a little troubling to me, this idea that there'll be 3 committee members and then some sort of floating alternate system. I know that the idea of the floating alternate is a great one, except in practice, what Mrs. White said is what happens. If you don't put it on your calendar, you're not available, you know, on the day when you realize, oh, it's coming up and I could have that opportunity. So without, and someone suggested, I don't remember who, but that perhaps if, I think maybe Mrs. McCune, if there were an opportunity to build a planned rotating participant, that would be one way to ensure that you don't end up with 2 people, because I don't think 2 people is enough. There are 9 equal board members up here, and having only 2 people attend a committee because someone at the last minute couldn't make it and an alternate can't attend, I don't think that serves the board in terms of understanding what's going on with that committee's topics or the community very well. And then I also am a little bit concerned about the distribution. It's troubling to me that with 4 brand new board members, that there's a disproportionate interest in one type of topic. And with so much to learn on all committee topics, policy, curriculum, wellness, just as important as finance, and I appreciate the sentiment around operations, especially with some of the facilities concerns. But looking at this, Ms. Light is participating in 2 of basically identical committees, and there's 3 other committees where there's an opportunity to learn a whole lot by attending. There's 2 open spaces. Why not learn some more instead of waiting to find it out in a shortened report? There's been a lot of discussion about transparency. Well, the best way I can think of to have transparency is to sit in front of the information as it's disseminated first person. So, and I don't mean to call you out, there's others, it just happens to be, you know, K comes before R, sorry. So, because I did a little grid while I was sitting here, so, and cut me off whenever I'm hitting my 3 minutes. And then I see, thanks so much, John. And then I see that we have some people who are on 2 committees and there are 2 alternates, and then there are other people who are not alternates on any committee, and I'm just not sure I understand why that would be if the goal is for all board members to have as clear an understanding. These are opportunities to provide that understanding by being in attendance for the committee meetings. So that's a little troubling to me. And then I just have a quick comment about the discussion around the Finance Committee. There seems to be a free use of the word budgeting as if rebudgeting happens every month, and that's not really what happens. There's a process, the budget is built, I'll wrap up, I swear, and from that point, it's accounting, and yes, it's important, and it's part of what Ms. Light was speaking to, but I don't want the community to be left with the idea that the budget is being rebuilt monthly or bi-monthly. Thank you.
Hi, Alicia Martini, 118 Blackburn Road. I'm not sure what y'all are going to talk about with the health curriculum today, so I'm going to kind of try and guess. We had a meeting this morning. I'm also the Ridge PTO president. I'm not here as a PTO representative. I'm here personally. But at our meeting this morning, we did talk about it, so I just want to bring up some key points that I thought were really valid, and I would like the whole board to hear. School looks a lot different from then when we were in school, and one of the things that we were talking about this morning in regards to health is that some parents were concerned if their kids were opting out that they may feel stigmatized by leaving a classroom. I actually was also a teacher in this district, and both of my kids have gone through the elementary schools. The elementary school classrooms are basically like a revolving door of kids coming in and out. It's a constant motion of kids leaving and coming for band, for chorus, for violins, for speech, for math help. It's constant. As a teacher, it's almost hard to have an entire class all at one point. It's hard to manage who's coming in and out, so much so that like the kid gets a post-it on his desk and they're responsible for it. So I don't think other children are monitoring when so-and-so is coming in and out. So I really don't think there's much of an argument of there being a stigma if a kid is leaving during what would be, maybe a controversial health topic. I don't think other kids would even notice because of the constant in and out. Another issue I think that was brought up was that some kids don't feel comfortable because if they do have to opt out, one of the only remaining places oftentimes at an elementary school is in a principal's office. And again, when we were in school, we never saw the principal. If you saw the principal, it meant you were in trouble, and that was the only time you saw his or her face. I think it's very different nowadays. It was very different even when I taught here. The principals go out of their way to know the kids, to be available, to be in the classrooms, to be at lunch, to be all over. So I don't think they're as scary or as an imposing presence as they used to be, potentially when we were in school. To be honest, a lot of times the PTOs actually sell lunch with the principal for a day. A lot of the kids actually choose to want to hang out with the principal. And I do feel that if a child, though, is anxious about that, that maybe is something that is a simple discussion between the parent and a teacher saying, you're not in trouble, this is just a choice your family has made. Go hang out 30 minutes and it shouldn't be a cause to change potentially curriculum for an entire district because one or two kids may be anxious about that. And from what we heard this morning, the opt-out numbers are very, very low at this point in time. Not all topics have been covered yet, but it's not a significant number to change the curriculum. An idea I think that has potentially been floated, I'm not sure, is that to make more controversial topics a homework packet for everyone, and then kids could choose or not choose to do it. Again, I don't advocate giving extra homework for particularly Ridge kids, but for anyone. And if you're, in my opinion, feel free to opt out of health. I totally support your personal decision to do that. But if you're now making topics homework, you're taking away my option of having a teacher instruct on health. And if it is a statement, okay, I'm sorry, that last statement. If it's a state mandated curriculum, I feel like I have a right to have my school district teach my child. And if you're just giving it as a homework packet that my kid's supposed to do on their own, you're taking away my right to have the instruction. So I just would prefer that not to be the case. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody online? This time we'll close public comment and we will move on to approval of the minutes. We have a motion. Mr. Salmon. Ms. Light. Any discussion?
Yeah, you could just do it doesn't have to be a roll call.
Yeah.
Is there discussion?
Yes. I think there was a question on whether or not we needed to move forward with everything or if we could hold off one item for the Ops Committee. Oh, not on the minutes.
Yeah, we're approving the minutes.
This is just the minute.
It's just the minutes. Okay. No questions then.
Or can we have a hand vote?
I would just say all in favor.
All in favor?
Any opposed?
Anybody opposed?
Any abstains? Any abstentions?
Abstentions? All right. Motion passes. Now we're up to the Finance Committee report. There are 14 items. Can I have a motion? Mr. Salmon? Mr. Rashio? Any discussion?
We have a readout of the Finance Committee from December's meeting, correct? Okay. So because I wasn't at this meeting, I'll just read out the minutes and then discuss briefly the items on the finance agenda for this evening. During the December Finance Committee meeting, we got an update from Aramark. Bill and Sean Walsh joined the committee to give high-level overview of the food service operations. When comparing 2019 to the current year, the overall picture shows average daily sales to be approximately the same. Labor costs were slightly lower because of staff shortages, but food costs are up slightly due to inflation. On the building level, average daily sales were down about 400 a day at Ridge. Staffing continues to be an issue. After meeting with the members of the student government, committee members had some questions for Bill. The kids would like to meet with Jason to discuss menu options. There was a concern about which foods are being sold by weight. Bill and Sean explained that there have not been any changes to pre-COVID practices. However, during COVID, those practices were suspended. There was another question about availability of breakfast foods and restocking of vending machines. Sean explained that coffee and bagels are available at one of the stations pre-lunch. There are currently 28 Aramark employees staffed at BTSD for food service. Per our contract, food service staff would be 34. Fully staffed for the Ridge High School cafeteria would be 15. Currently, Ridge has 12 Aramark cafeteria staff. Efforts to hire have yielded very few viable candidates, even those who were in the pipeline last month did not meet the state background check. We'll have another update on that based on the last Finance Committee next meeting, I think. The second update was on the Oak Street School roof project. The tower edge design plans have been finalized and approved. On Monday, December 12th, John met with Provco to review any final design changes. Fabrication is underway. I believe it has actually been completed at this point. Installation is expected to be completed over winter break, which is what I was saying, weather permitting. And Mr. Perrin expects that there will be some punch list items that may not be able to be addressed until spring. And then we will discuss any contract change management orders with them. The third is on the turf field. So Mr. Perrin came to the meeting prepared a side-by-side comparison of engineering proposals that we had for the potential turf field to address, I think it's varsity field and the girls, the baseball field? Not softball, just baseball. So the two engineering firms have a clear grasp of the project expectations. The analysis shows that both firms provided nearly identical services in all areas, including but not limited to site drainage, stormwater management, conceptual design, topography surveys, soil boring, and contract documents. Soil testing is for soil removal from the property and is itemized separately. It is important to note that there is a portion of these proposals that must be done simply to determine the feasibility for the full project, and I believe this is the item that we were to vote on tonight, but we'll discuss whether we're going to push that to the next meeting. The New Jersey Department of Education issued a memo on November 16th, which provides there'll be a delay for the ACFR submission due to delays in the New Jersey Treasury Department in providing districts data related to GASB 75 reporting requirement for the ACFR. The RTC flooring update, the purchase for this is for the locker rooms, right, Nick? This is for the locker rooms. The purchase order for the new Target flooring was sent out on December 14th. Manufacturing will take approximately 13 weeks. The project is expected to take about a week. The work is currently anticipated to be done in March and April, pending coordination with Mr. Shello. New lighting, LED in the WAMS gym looks great. Ridge High School new gym lamps are in the process of being updated to LED lamps. The work is about 50% complete. I think at this point it is complete, or they had maybe 8 more to go. Fixtures at Ridge are being painted with reflective paint on the inside of the fixtures, and the outside are being painted with a dark paint to create a better downward cast of the light. And some of the feedback that we got at the last meeting was that made a big difference, and it was very nice. I think it's the last item for December, is related to the HVAC RTU assessment. Joe reported to Mr. Laughlin at that time that the rooftop assessments at Mount Prospect and Liberty rooftop assessments have now been completed. The final RTU survey assessment report is anticipated to be complete by the second week in January, and as an update from this past committee meeting, we did receive that proposal, or that recommendation. Concurrently, Mr. Mistretta is preparing the design work for the 8 classrooms in need of replacement of the supplemental HVAC systems, which I believe are the in-classroom systems. The district anticipates putting out the request for bids based on those specs in February, with the plan for the work to be completed in July of 2023. As a reminder, from the November report, the total cost of the project would be about $1.25 million. Currently, $900,000 is set aside in ESSER 3 grants for this project. Any balance may be potentially funded from capital reserves or potential newly released regular operating district grants, aka the ROD grants. ROD grants can fund 40% of eligible costs. And that is it for the December meeting. And we'll have an update for you next meeting on the meeting we just had last week. Items 1 through 3 are standing items on the agenda for approval. Item number 4 relates to professional development of our staff. Item number 5 accepts the donation from the Ridge Devil Wrestling Club for the floor mats in the Ridge High School wrestling room. Number 6 approves disposal of equipment and books. Number 7 through 11 relates to, 7 through 10 relates to student tuition. Number 11 is a settlement approval. Number 12 authorizes the migration of ESEA monies from the 2021-22 year to the 2022-23 year. They are carried over, and I believe they can be used up until the end of next year, the majority of those. Number 13 is a recommendation to join the Bergen County Cooperative Pricing Agreement to get better pricing. It doesn't, if I remember correctly from the meeting last week, that is not going to cost us anything. It just gives us a better avenue for purchasing related to that. Number 14 is the item that we want to talk about related to the plans for the turf field at the Varsity Sports Complex, and hiring Boswell Engineering to do a feasibility study, and should that feasibility study be feasible, to work up the drawings and help us with the permits and managing the project. And I think that is it for items. Any questions?
Any discussion on the items? Mr. Rascher?
So I was the one who kind of recommended tabling the varsity field project for another 2 weeks. My concern is that it's such a massive project with so many different things involved in it, that taking 2 more weeks before we commit $164,000 to it is worth it, because it was kind of just laid on us at the, or from my perspective, at the Finance Committee meeting. I would be happy to vote on a line item, like approve them to draw up the plans and give us a nice big picture of it, but there's so much work that needs to be done, and their proposal doesn't include any of the drainage, which we know is the main issue down there. So we spent a lot of money last year regrading and resodding the softball fields, but doing nothing in terms of drainage. Right? And that's the main problem down there. So whatever drainage we put in for this new facility has got to tie into the drainage that hopefully we're going to do for the softball field, which ultimately goes to the town. So taking 2 more weeks to review, and the language in the contract doesn't give us really any out. The way it reads is it's committing us to $164,000 with no time frame. So my recommendation would be to vote just on the drawings and give us a nice picture of it, but not approve the entire contract.
So,
unless I'm wrong.
Just for clarification, so this engineering contract is really in stages, right? So the first stage is really the feasibility study that we're commissioning as part of the overall drawings package and everything, but the first part of this is, can we even do this? And this is the entire drainage solution for everything that comes off of Lee Field down to the lower fields, right? So there's the varsity field, which is grass, which is intermediate on the hill, and then down to softball and baseball. So the goal of this project, like if we did the full 164,000, if we went the full way for that, that would be the entire drainage solution for that, and for basically all the sports complex from Lee Field down the hill. So this does encompass the drainage, but the way that the contract was designed was that the first step is, I think, something like $25,000 or something like that for a feasibility study, so that, can we put a shovel into the ground, or is this wetlands, or is this protected by something that the Department of Environmental Protection will, kind of nix us on. So I think that was the goal of this, is to get to that point, right? To get to feasibility go, drawings go, design work go, construction bid package. That's where this ends up. I mean, I'm happy to, give everybody more time to look at it if you think there's language in the contract that needs to, go over there. I just wanted to clarify that, it's tiered into feasibility. It's from feasibility all the way up through bid package.
So do we have the ability to line item or sign the contract for like the first two phases, let's say, the drawing and the feasibility?
Yeah, so I think that's the way the contract's structured. From what I saw, that, it was going back and forth again, today a little bit, so that's why I think, having another 2 weeks is totally, fine.
Yeah.
But I think that was the goal of the contract, was when we put out the contract to Boswell and French and Perilla, it was said, give us all of these steps, price them all out separately, and I think there's 6, 8 or something like that in each one, so that we can basically have the right to pull the plug at any time. Right? Because if we get the feasibility study and it says, yeah, you guys can do this, and it's 10x what we thought it was going to be, then we don't want to go through design phase, right? So just the feasibility study is kind of the first tier of both of those proposals that we got, and we kind of selected Boswell because they had the experience, because they built Lee Field and did the track and everything like that, so they have some institutional knowledge of what they're going to be dealing with going down the hill.
That motion would have to be seconded, and the board can discuss whether they want to postpone, and then you have a vote on that first. And if that vote passes, then this item will be off tonight, or will be put on for the next time, and then you can consider a vote on the remaining 13.
So just real quick, so, to your question about, are you on the hook for the whole $164,000? So I know that question was raised at the Finance Committee meeting when we were looking at this. And this morning, we had a little back and forth with the engineering company, and it was understood that this was the intent, but we asked them to add some language that at any point in time, if the execution of the proposal isn't feasible, then we can stop paying them at any time for future work. We have to pay them for what work that they did, which was supposed to happen at the end of task 2. So task 1 was the conceptual design, and task 2 was the topographic survey. Those two tasks, no later than that, was their cutoff to be able to make a determination as to whether or not the rest of the project would be feasible. Because we asked them that question actually from the Finance Committee meeting in December. We said, look, at what point of investment would you be able to advise the board whether or not this is going to be a project that can be done relative to permitting, DEP, the scope of the work, and so on? And they said at the point of task 2, which I think to Mr. Salmon's point was around, it's actually $22,800. So that, I did ask them to add that language. The sentence they added reads, if at any time during the execution of this proposal, the feasibility of the project becomes doubtful, we will only charge for the work completed up to that time. So that was the language that they added. I did ask the engineer that put this proposal together if he could actually come to the board meeting tonight to answer any questions. He wasn't available. You know, I'm sure he will come when he is available. If you'd like to have him here to speak to the whole board and let the community hear from him, I'm happy to make those arrangements. It's just, it's just time. Obviously we want to try to get something going here, but I'm happy to make those arrangements if you want to take a little more time and have him come in and talk about this.
Can we vote on the approval of the contract in general, but have them commit to timeframes to getting phase 1 and phase 2 done?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to, I'd want to get that in the contract. If you want like a deadline to complete task 2,
Yeah.
We could ask them to put, some benchmark dates in and ask them to amend for those, and then have him, the engineer that did this is Jeff Morris. He actually was the engineer that worked on the replacement track when we had the new track put around Lee Field, and also when we had the new turf installed. We had to replace the turf, the carpet, if you will, wears out over time. So, great experience with him in the last couple projects. I'm sure he'd be happy to work on some dates and come and talk to you guys about it, either in committee or in public. Just have to make sure he's available. He just wasn't available tonight. I tried, but he wasn't. He had another meeting, probably had another board meeting. So.
I think it's worth waiting to see those firm deadlines. I would also say firm up the obligation to move forward. It's not just if it's not feasible, it's if the board decides for any reason it doesn't want to move forward, we'll pay them for the work that they've done, but we don't have to force them to keep doing work that we don't want to pay for.
So are there any objections to moving item 14 to the next board meeting?
I'll make a motion to move to the next board meeting.
Second?
Second.
What are we doing? Is it objections or motions, or what are we doing?
A motion is on the table to take. A motion is on the table. I'm using the word table. A motion has been made to postpone that item to the next. I appreciate it was already asked anyway, but a motion has been made to postpone item 14 to the next board meeting, and it's been seconded. So now there could be discussion just about that. Do we want to table it? But if everyone's in agreement, we can just have a voice vote.
Yeah, no, I mean, it happened, it was going on like in real time today, so like 2 weeks, it's not, the turf field's not going to be built in 2 weeks. Unless we can we do? No, I'm just...
Why not?
Okay, all in favor of moving item 14 to the next board meeting? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
So now we need a roll call on the other 13.
Now we're back to the other 13.
Yes.
If there's any, for that, is there any further discussion on the other?
Yeah, is there any further discussion on the other 13 items? Ask for a roll call vote, please.
Microphone.
Items 1 through 13, Mr. Amin?
Yes.
Mr. Molinari?
Yes.
Mr. Rashio?
Yes.
Ms. McKeon?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Ms. Light?
Yes.
Ms. Shipak?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we are to the Personnel Committee report. There are 24 items. Can I have a motion? Ms. White? Oh, 25.
With the addendum.
With the addendum. Second, Ms. Light. Personnel Committee report?
Yes, the Personnel Committee met on December 16th. Unfortunately, all of the topics that were discussed were contractual, security, and/or staffing-related matters, so I can't publicly report on any of those.
Okay, any discussion on the items? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Amin?
Yes.
Mr. Molinari?
Yes.
Mr. Rashio?
Yes.
Ms. McKeon?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Ms. Light?
Yes.
Ms. Shipak?
Yes.
Motion carries.
You're up to Policy Committee report. Ms. Hira is not here tonight. Is anything going to be report out for her? Or?
I can read it if you want. I mean, there's minutes here.
If you want to, Mr. Salmon, that's fine. I did bring them up with that expectation that I would report out, but.
Well, you were there, so
Okay.
why don't you take the con on that
Sounds
one?
good. I was there. Okay, so just to kind of work in reverse a little bit, we had some second reading items that there were no changes for since the first reading. Those items were already voted on at the second meeting in December, so that's all set and away. The two policies that were discussed a bit were the school visitors policy and the idea of adding some language that would reflect the fact that at some events, at the discretion of the administration, bags may not be allowed. For example, bags brought to football games, bags brought to a board meeting or a concert or things of that nature for security reasons. So actually, Mr. Crute helped us craft a sentence that we put into the school visitors policy that we will report out on at the next meeting relative to the language that we have for first reading. But that was the gist of it, to try to have something in there to capture the idea that we don't want people bringing bags into public events. The second policy that was discussed related to board member use of electronic communications, email, social media. It kind of turned into a conversation about norms for communication, between board members and perhaps between the board members and the public, and how different things like that might get handled. We talked about the fact that there's a variety of board policies that related to some of the issues that we had been discussing at the committee meeting, and the idea was to ask the board if they're interested in creating a norms document, and if the board is interested in a document like that that could help serve as a quick reference sheet, if you will, to some of the content in various board policies, then the policy committee would be happy to take that charge on, but is looking for some guidance from the board as a whole, because should there be norms for board members, then board members would all be expected to follow them, so we don't want to write norms that the board doesn't want to have. So the committee was interested in helping to work on that project, but wanted direction from the board as a whole as to whether or not the board would like the committee to work on that project. That was it.
Any questions? Is there a curriculum committee report?
This is actually the report from December. We began with the results from the DIBELS and the win for grade 1 in the fall. We've been tracking DIBELS since 2019 in grade 1, although DIBELS couldn't be administered due to COVID in 2020. The results at all 4 elementary schools are very positive and demonstrate a substantial decrease in the number of students falling below benchmark. DIBELS tests specific targeted skills, and it's important to note that in the 21-22 school year, the 95% core phonics program began implementation in the winter, and this year will be the first full year of implementation of this program. Then we went over the program of studies for 2023, 24, and all of these revisions that I'm going to read are in the program of studies. So there is a new course, an honors option for the semester elective course, Ethics, What's the Right Thing to Do? It will be offered to students who qualify for grades 10 through 12. There'll be a new course, Enriched Algebra 2. It's a full-year course for grades 10 through 12. And we discussed this actually in great depth about the new course and how the algebra will be redistributed over 3 different levels. So the course removal of IAT-A will no longer be offered to 23-24, but students are recommended to take CP Algebra 2 instead given the creation of the enriched Algebra 2 level. There was a course name change. Design and creation will now be called Design through Sculpture. There were a few course prerequisite changes. We've updated the prerequisites for AP Economics. Mathematics course grade eligibility requirements have been eliminated. We updated the prerequisites to AP Calculus AB, a final grade of B or better in honors pre-calculus, or a final grade of A or better in CP Calculus for grades 11 or 12. We've updated the prerequisites in AP Statistics and AP Computer Science A as a result in the deletion of the honors criteria page. And students are not permitted to skip a year of world language instruction without supervisor approval. There are slight course description changes for honors art major, AP Studio Drawing 2D and 3D. And the summer financial literacy course, the dates have been updated just to reflect this summer's dates. And then we had a discussion about the AP exam and specifically self-study. The College Board has a self-study pathway to provide a pathway for homeschool students to take AP exams and to create options for students whose schedules could not accommodate one or more classes and an opportunity to still take an AP exam. Ridge has always encountered requests for self-studying for AP exams. There's been an increase in requests from students who are seeking to take an exam when ample time to qualify for the corresponding course still exists. Some examples of these types of requests include a 9th grader requests to self-study for an AP bio exam, or a 10th grader requesting self-study for the AP psychology. A multitude of 11th graders on pace to take calculus in grade 12, seeking to take either the AP Calc AB or AP Calc BC exam via self-study. While the College Board has a self-study process through which students may register for an AP exam without having taken the course, districts choose whether or not to allow students to register for AP exams for courses they are not enrolled in or for courses that the school doesn't offer. The following guidelines will be implemented to guide the approval process for self-study requests. The College Board has a self-study process through which students may register without having taken the course. Districts choose whether or not to allow the students. Ridge permits students to register for AP Chinese and other language AP exams upon request. Students will be permitted to request registration for AP exams that they are not enrolled in when they are courses that are offered at Ridge and the student is qualified for that course. All other AP guidelines apply, including the limitation for sophomores to take a maximum of 2 AP courses. Seniors can self-study for exams we offer regardless of their qualifications. We don't want to close doors for students, but we do want to guide students. So some of the scholarships that used to be available to students by taking these exams no longer exist. This past year, there were 32 additional tests taken, excluding the Chinese AP exam. And it's important to note that school rankings could be affected as a result of self-study. Despite the fact that teachers may have a number of students not enrolled in their course taking the exam, those students' courses are included in their reports. We had a brief review of marking period 1 grades, and after a thorough analysis and a comparison to prior years, we're happy to see we're back to pre-pandemic performance levels. There were 119 students receiving D+, D, D-, or E in 162 courses, and 25 students enrolled in 38 courses receiving an E. And it's important to note the majority of these students are struggling learners. And then we briefly went over the windows for the add drop. In the analysis, there are 3 windows. One, course change requests have to be by June 22nd. For appeals, it's August 25th through September 1st and 3rd. Schedule change requests are September 6th through October 28th. And pushing back the 3rd window for add drop has been very beneficial to students, and it's allowed students to level down, and this year for the first time to level up, to be in a course which a student can be the most successful. And then the next curriculum meeting, we just had one, so the next date would be sometime in February, correct? First Friday of every month.
Any questions? Tim?
So for the self-study example that you gave of the ninth grader requesting to self-study for AP Bio, did that go through?
No, it did not. As freshmen are taking biology as their regular required course, and so they would not be qualified to take AP Bio until later, 11th or 12th grade.
Right, okay.
So no, it did not.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Wellness Committee report?
Nick, is there anything for?
December wellness? Hang on. Transition. Did we meet in December?
We did. We did.
December 22nd.
Mhm. Yeah, that was one out.
Go for it. Mr. Side's turn.
Okay, I'll take a turn here. So the Wellness Committee met, oh, that sounds loud. Wow. The Wellness Committee met on December 22nd. And the first item was a discussion of the WAMS Wellness Program and the current state of wellness at Annan. Mrs. Hudak joined us for that discussion. She talked about a rise, as was mentioned in the board meeting, a rise in HIB incidents at William Annan. Many middle schools in the state are actually experiencing these upticks, specifically racial slurs, vandalism, racial slur problems, much of it coming from social media. Very few repeat offenders. Buses and social media seem to be where a lot of this is happening. And so the follow-up then was what is being done. Mrs. Hudak and the administrative team arranged guest speakers. Ryan Halligan was brought in. Detectives from the prosecutor's office speaking about bias, crime, cyberbullying, and legal implications as well. Had Mikey Fallon last spring, talked about his child being bullied and later committing suicide. He's a very powerful speaker. Morning meetings focusing on character ed, parent presentations, although she reported not great attendance there. School safety team setting up opportunities for parent training, direct instruction at afternoon meetings, grade level meetings. Most HIBs are not self-reported. Another student is reporting that something was offensive. Started shifting over the last year back to a balance of academics and SEL as a community. Field day, trying to incorporate more working together, needing to rebuild community after COVID. She thinks the isolation also led to some more of that bullying on social media. Second item was a Ridge Wellness update. Dr. Lazovic joined the discussion, noted a slight uptick in HIB, but not as much as we're seeing at the middle school. Doesn't think it's a bus issue. Vandalism, though, as was reported tonight, is up again. Language usage on a daily basis, having issues with some of the language students are using, how they're talking to each other, trying to call kids out, pointing out the implications of their actions. Again, most of it around technology. Wellness Day survey was done, culture and climate developed by Rutgers. Great response rate. Responses were not required, but there was a good rate of return. Overall, according to this survey, the students at Ridge were happy, appreciated their teachers, liked their teachers. Looking at this data and the DEI data to see what can be done to make things better. So that's going to be done over the next month. Let's see, counseling update. So then Mrs. Smith gave counseling update, although some of this information was in the Counseling December newsletter. College reps were back. We had 330 students attend rep visits. There was a parent night on November 29th, a huge turnout, which is great. Junior season now, college admissions advice is changing every year, especially post-COVID. This month, there's a check-in with 9th and 10th grade students taking place. The Naviance module for sophomores, which is that career module, is being administered this month. And then freshmen are also being met with this month. Third item was the Lifeline Suicide Prevention Programming Update. That was actually Ms. Smith and Ms. Fox. Talked about the plans for rollout, really in 3 realms: prevention, intervention, and postvention. Prevention being working with program to integrate parts of this program into what we are already doing. What are the warning signs for yourself and others and peers? And how do you ask for help? And then intervention, starting with the admin team. Next month, there'll be some training that's actually taking place already. Then on to a crisis team in February and March, and full-day training for that group. And then postvention, working on studying our current plan. This summer, health teachers will look at content lessons for students and how our current curriculum could integrate some of this suicide prevention program. Lifelines is a research evidence-based curriculum. Just a real brief mention of item 4, the in-service plans are underway for February 1st and March 1st. And then the last item, which was the Pride survey, the drug and alcohol survey, required form and permission slip and explanation in Genesis at the beginning of the year. It was administered on December 14th. WAMS had 77% of students in grades 6 and 8 took the survey. Ridge took it during the class. If they got an email, you took the survey. 68% had permission to take it. 55% of students in grades combined took the survey. So 81% of eligible students took the survey. It was anonymous. We will get analysis by June and a focus on our results so we can compare it to previous years. So that's certainly something we'll be reporting back on. And the next Wellness Committee, it said TBD, but that's Thursday of this week. That's it. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Sai, what was the response rate on the Rutgers survey, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, let me just pull that back up, Mr. Molinari. Rutgers survey was...
I don't think it's in there.
Oh, yeah, no, not on the Rutgers survey. No, the Pride survey, I had metrics on.
We can get that.
Yeah, we can definitely get that.
No problem.
I'll make sure we report out at the next meeting on that.
Okay.
It was very high.
Are there
Yeah,
any
it was.
liaison committee reports?
I have one.
Ms. White?
Okay, so I want to report out on the next few lunch and learns. So on February 15th, there's going to be an overview on the preschool curriculum. On March 22nd, the topic is school refusal. And on April 5th, the topic is social skills for vocational studies programs. And these are all, the lunch and learns are all from 12 to 1 on those days, and they're virtual. The PEC has a great new website that they have revised and it's launched, and it features informational, educational, and community services that are available to all families. And they also launched in November something called the Parent Feedback Forum. It's to give special education parents a vehicle for sharing issues and positive comments that allow CPAC to work with the district to identify trends. And it can be found in a few places. One is the Special Services Friday folder. It's right on the PEC website, and it's also in the PEC e-newsletter weekly. We had a really wonderful meeting with the CPAC meeting this past week. It's a very collaborative way of working, since they kind of redesigned the whole way the CPAC and the PEC are functioning now. So for anybody who doesn't know, there are PEC reps, and they meet regularly in all the different buildings with principals, and they deal with the issues that are related to buildings. And then the CPAC handles all the more global issues that relate to all students. And that's it.
Any questions? Okay, now we're up to public comment on non-agenda items. So anyone for public comment, please come on down.
Hi, my name is Christy Omalanik, and I'm at 112 Galloping Hill Road. I noticed that the board member ethics training was on the agenda for the board retreat, which took place at 5 p.m. tonight before the regular session. But the new board was voted in about 3 weeks ago. So I'm just curious to know why that training wasn't taken sooner, and what decisions were made or items were voted on in the last 3 weeks prior to individuals having taken the ethics training.
Annika Forzani, 45 Don Drive. I just wanted to make a couple comments about what had been brought up in this meeting. Mr. Markarian mentioned putting in norms for board members. I think that is absolutely necessary. I think what was going on last year with board members harassing others offline, et cetera, that to me is completely unacceptable. I think we have expected norms and behaviors of our students. I don't understand why we would not have documented accepted norms and behaviors of our board members as well. So I can't imagine anyone being a bit against that, but I just wanted to say how important I think it is. I have mentioned this before, but I think part of those norms should also be that we should be able to feel that we are safely able to ask questions of things that come up at board meetings, suing members of the public who question things that are said in board meetings. You know, this should not happen. So if that could be part of the norms and expectations, I would very much appreciate that because it would make me feel safer coming up here and speaking. Also, I just wanted to bring up, I was a little surprised to see that the agenda now had this health and wellness again because, you know, added last minute because when I looked last week, I didn't see anything about that. And I find it really frustrating. I mean, huge amounts of time were spent over the last year by a lot of people in the community, administration, teachers. And personally, I find it really, at this point, kind of inconsiderate and disrespectful of the time of these administrators and these teachers. They did huge amounts of surveys, tons of taking in input from teachers, from students, from parents, et cetera, and really tried to create something that worked with an opt-out option for people. And so I really think, you know, let's use the time of our teachers wisely and not start, you know, doing things that are going to piss them off and make them want to, you know, leave this district. And the other thing about that is I am not a teacher. I am not a teacher. I am not good at teaching. That's not my skill. Yet I want my kids to learn what is in that health and wellness curriculum. And I want it taught by experienced teachers, not by me. So just as I would expect the board not to expect me to teach chemistry to my kids, I would also expect that you're not going to expect me to go over some kind of handout with my kids about health or wellness or chemistry or physics or anything else. I expect that this is going to be taught in the school just as is, you know, it's required by the state, and I think that the school should be teaching it. You know, we all have our own things we're good at. This is not what I'm good at, and I'm really going to be frustrated if that's the result, that now I have to go and teach that on top of my full-time job, on top of everything else I do with my kids. So again, there is an opt-out for people who don't want that. Why we're going back and revisiting this whole thing, I don't understand, but it's really disrespectful of everyone's time. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little frustrated, but I just feel like we spent a year going over this stuff. So let's move on. There's a lot of other things, as you heard, that need to get addressed. And I would appreciate if we could start moving on with some of those other things that instead of having the administration use their time up again on this. So thank you for taking that into consideration.
Cody Smith, 36 Royal Oak Drive. I wasn't going to comment on the health ed curriculum, but I feel like it's a must. So I am one of the parents that adopted their child out of the health and education. A couple of things on that. The emails that the parents get regarding the availability of the materials is lacking. So for my WAMS student, it referenced to the teacher's course page, but you can't get access to any of the materials without asking the teacher. And then what I got access to was the PowerPoint slides only. Some of the activities were on whatever it was called, but there's a lot of activities that weren't on the particular website where most of the material was there. And you'd have to go back and ask the teacher for that. For Ridge, you didn't even get that. You just basically said something's going to happen in class. If you want to talk about it, go to my course page, and there was no link there. So effectively, when the email comes out, it doesn't give you any information to make an informed decision. So when I went back and I asked for the materials, I did get the slide decks. And quite frankly, what was in there was a lot of material that I thought was not age appropriate, which I'll cover. Regarding opt-out, it's really not a day-to-day opt-out. You don't know what's going to happen day-to-day. So it's not like you're going to take your kid out one day and then put them in the next. The material builds on itself, one. You have no idea what's going to happen on any particular day. So opting out day-to-day is really not an option. And then somebody mentioned the peer pressure. Yes, that was a concern. I didn't experience that. My son was upset when I first opted him out. But since the marking period ends Thursday and I will have kept him out for the entire health education, I didn't face that. And effectively, the opt-out is unit by unit. So in this case, there were 6 units. It's not a day-to-day again. It's 6 choices that you have. One of the things is trust the teacher. I told the teacher it's not the teacher. My concern is with the school administration in the state of New Jersey. Obviously, in this material, there was an age-appropriate level where you could adjust the material. We pretty much elected not to do that. I was trying to pull it up on my phone, but for instance, episiotomy, if I even said that right, why does my child need to learn that? And literally it says the incision made between the anus and vagina to enlarge the birth canal to give birth to a larger baby. I don't have it word for word, I didn't read it, but that were the words. It's almost embarrassing to say. On the sexually transmitted diseases slides, I went back to the teacher and I said, I'm 62 years old, been married 25 years and have 5 kids, and I'm getting quite the education. My point here is, why in 8th grade do we need to learn all of this? It's way out of line. One might argue you don't even need to know it by the time that you finish high school. But if you go back and you look at the slides and look at what we're teaching, it's way over the top. It's way more than what is necessary. So I think it should be looked at again. And I think if these people actually went through the slide decks and saw what was there, and they understood what this district was teaching their children, they may have a different feeling on with regard to this whole curriculum. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Karen Gray, Dawn Drive. Just a couple of really quick things. I hope as we proceed to the board forum that, I know in December before I left the board, there was a mention of the numbers of opt-out to that point across all grades. I hope that gets mentioned in the discussion. And then I just want to say, it troubles me, and it's really a piggyback on what Mrs. Frazani said about our teachers are certified, they're educated and certified to teach in their area of expertise. And I think in addition to the undue burden that it puts on parents, if this is thrust upon them, it also diminishes the work that they've done in their life's work. They are trained to do this, and their expertise lies in that area. And I think probably many, many parents would say that theirs does not. Otherwise, we'd have more homeschooling. And just on a minor note that you'll hear from me again, very disappointing to hear about the Finance Committee meeting that I sat in before December 19th tonight. That's a long time to go to hear that report and not hear the most recent one. To Mr. Smith's point, I think that, you know, I don't particularly take issue with the agenda, but I think in terms of information available, dated information like that is not very valuable. Thank you.
Sherry Nelson, 195 Smoke Rise Road. I wanted to follow up, I guess it was the December meeting that I had brought up some of the safety concerns for the CBAP pickup and drop off here at Ridge. And I wanted to thank Mr. Markarian. At that meeting, he did say he would come out and take a look at it, and he was there the very next afternoon with Mr. Warner. It's been a month though, and nothing's changed. I did get a phone call from Dr. Lazovic this afternoon, so I think I'm gonna get another update. So that's all I know, but I did want to thank Mr. Markarian for following up. It's going to sound off topic, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that the Berners Township Zoning Board of Adjustment is hearing an application for a manufacturing site on Allen Road. that will bring tractor trailers into our community on Allen Road, on Mount Airy Road, on Martinsville Road. Specifically Mount Prospect School, I don't know what impact that might have of having those kind of trucks, going back and forth on Allen Road there. Maybe they won't go there, but wherever they are, they're going to impact school traffic, buses encountering those trucks. It's just something that you guys need to be aware of. That's coming up, and they're having a meeting on that February 8th. And then the health curriculum. I wasn't really going to talk about this, but my kids are older. When you only had the sex ed talk in 5th grade, you got your email. If you wanted to opt out, you opted out one day, or you didn't. It was just easier. This notion that we can look at the opt-out numbers so far this year and gain any knowledge doesn't really add up to what we were told after the parent survey. We were told that the biggest concern was age appropriateness of some of the topics. So to give that consideration, we were told those topics we taught at the end of the year when the kids are older, or the end of that 3-year grade bracket. So if you look at opt-out numbers so far this year, it's not going to tell you anything about, maybe the middle school, but the elementary school, my understanding, that was all going to happen at the end of the year. Then I would just say the whole thing with the survey, and everybody put in all this time and effort, but we were kind of told, it was 50-50 on the parent survey. And my feeling was, well, too bad the 50% that were against it. Your voices weren't really heard. And we had an election, and this was a hot topic this fall. And we have new board members. So I think it absolutely warrants a board forum discussion tonight. Maybe something changes, maybe something doesn't. Maybe not a homework packet, but I think some districts put it the last day of the school year, and then you just opt out one day. I think when you ask parents to check a course page every week, you can't even get them to read a Friday folder. It's the communication is overwhelming sometimes, and so expecting them to basically know day by day and week by week what's going to be taught in the health class, and there are definitely portions of the health units that have nothing to do with sex, and parents would have no problem with that. But then it sounds like maybe at the middle school they're having to opt out of the entire marking period. I don't know. I think it absolutely is worth a discussion, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Catherine Santati, 26 Patriot Hill Drive. I just want to encourage that during the health discussion that we always keep it fact-based. And I just have to say that female reproductive health, it's not disgusting. Episiotomies are part of childbirth. That's fact-based, it's medical, and it needs to be discussed. Just keep it in fact.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody online, Mr. Syed? Ms. Fox. Okay, at this point, I will close public comment and open board forum. Did you want, yeah. Sure. Yeah, no, go ahead.
It's in the,
Yeah, I have update. I was
an
just gonna
update from Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I broke it down a little bit, Tim.
Huh?
If you want to do that, that's fine, but I broke it down a little further.
Oh, by all means.
Yeah, I've updated the board, the committee a couple of times, along the way. To Ms. Nelson's point about whether the information is relevant right now, it certainly will be more complete at the end of the year. The idea that we put content at the end of the year, though, is not what was intended. So that was like a misunderstanding. In K-5, most of the controversial units are like right now. No, I know, I'll get there. But like January and February, like within the year. Yes, I'm sorry. But what we did say and is true is that in as many cases as possible, we put the controversial content at the end of the grade band. So in 8th grade is when the students have to meet the standard. But that's not to say that it doesn't appear at all in some cases in the lower grades. But as much And in most cases, especially the new content, we put them at the end of the grade band. So that's a little different than at the end of the year. So the numbers I have right now are as of the beginning of this meeting. So we're close to halfway through the year. And the other thing that's sort of different and important to note is that in the grades 6 through 12, students take a marking period of health. So we have a whole half of, 11th grade health is starting, third marking period, and then there's 9th grade health at the end of the year. And at the middle school, there's a marking period of health in all 3 grades all year long. So those numbers could certainly be dramatically different or the same by the end of the year. K-5, there's 1 unit per month, and so parents are generally getting the information about the teachers either teaching 1 day a week of health or all of the health all together for 4 days during that month. So that's sort of up to the teachers and the grade levels. It's a little hard to break that down, but here are the opt-out numbers as of right now. There have been 45 individual opt-out requests submitted through the form. And I've checked with the principals a number of times. Those are the only ways opt-outs are supposed to be granted and are occurring, and they assure me that that's what's happening. Of those 45 individual requests, 4 of those parents changed their mind after a conversation with either the teacher or the administrator. Of the remaining requests, that represents 20 separate individual families, so multiple requests for the same families, and 27 individual students. Liberty Corner has 12 of those requests, Cedar Hill 1, there are none at Mount Prospect, 5 at Oak Street, 6 at William Annan, and 1 at Ridge High School. By grade, we had 1 kindergarten request, 5 second grade requests, 3 first grade requests, 9 third grade requests, 2 fifth grade requests, 4 seventh grade requests, 2 eighth grade requests, and 1 senior opt-out request. Thank you. You're welcome. Sorry about that.
Mr. Sam, you want to shed some light on the meeting we had on Friday?
Yes. I'm going to report out like it's a regular curriculum committee meeting, so I'm just going to read from the minutes that I took that day. The new curriculum committee that we just voted on right now, with Mr. Amin attending as well, met on January 20th on Friday. The only topic for discussion was the new curriculum standards / content in K-8 health class being delivered through homework assignment. An off-schedule curriculum committee meeting was called for on Thursday, January 19th, 2023, to be held on Friday, January 20th, 2023, to discuss an agenda item to be added to and voted on at the board meeting on today, Monday, January 23rd. Mr. Molinari, Mr. Amin, and Ms. Chepak proposed that the agenda item would be as soon as practical to move all quote-unquote new controversial topics from the state-mandated 2020 New Jersey Learning Standards Comprehensive Health and Physical Education to a quote-unquote homework-only model for K-8. Mr. Molinari provided us a list of the new controversial topics, and when I say new controversial topics, I'm referring to the list provided by Mr. Molinari at this meeting. In the homework-only model, all K-8 health and physical education instruction would return to the curriculum based on the 2014 standards, and there would be no classroom instruction for any of the new controversial topics. The proposal included a variety of options for delivery of instructional materials related to the new controversial topics, including sending materials home in a sealed envelope, online resources, and email delivery, all with an opt-out form for parental consideration. Unless a student returned the opt-out form, instruction on all of the new controversial topics would be provided by parents in the home. Mr. Molinari explained that the community is split on in-school instruction related to the new controversial topics, and the homework-only model will be better for staff, students, and parents because it is more inclusive. A discussion was held regarding the proposed voting item, including the following questions. Number 1, an overarching question is whether this type of homework-only model is permitted for instruction related to state-mandated New Jersey learning standards. For example, is it possible for a school district, regardless of subject area, to say that it will not provide any classroom instruction related to specified New Jersey learning standards, and but will provide materials for parental instruction for such standards? The answer was that this seemed to be unresolved. Mr. Molinari did say that Toms River School District is executing the same homework-only model that was proposed. Mr. Molinari also noted that East Hanover Township, which is a K-8 school district, has put all instruction related to the new controversial topics on the final day of school. The second question was, by law, New Jersey Statute 18A 35-4-7, school districts must allow parents to opt their children out of health, family life education, or sex education if such education is in conflict with his or her conscience, or sincerely held moral or religious beliefs. Berners Township provides this opt-out option. You heard the opt-out numbers. The question was, why is the homework-only model necessary if the students already have the opt-out option? The answer that Mr. Mulroney said was that students who opt out are stigmatized, and communication related to the timing of instruction related to the new controversial topics has been inconsistent. The third question was, based on the answer to number 2 regarding opt-outs, a question arose about how the students who have opted out in previous years under the 2014 New Jersey learning standards related to health and physical education would be treated. It was explained that these students would opt out as they normally had in previous years, i.e. they would be moved out of the classroom during instruction and given an alternate assignment. So the homework-only model would be in place for the new controversial topics, but for those students who had opted out from material from the 2014 standards, nothing would change. The next question was, why was this proposal only considered for K through 8 and not K through 12? It was explained that all of the objectionable material is in the K through 8 new controversial topics. We did not have any information, then Ms. Fox subsequently provided the opt-out information for 6 through 12 students from previous years, which was 1 to 2 in the mental health and suicide units. I think this is the last part. Last question was, during the meeting, it was explained that the agenda item to be voted on could be amended to say, by March 1st, the homework-only model would be implemented. Ms. Fox, the answer was, Ms. Fox explained that for K through 5 students, all instruction related to these new controversial topics will have been completed by March 1st. Ms. Fox also explained that implementing the homework-only model would require teacher prep time to rework lessons plans which were written over the summer according to the new 2020 standards. The new controversial topics were not merely appended to the 2014 standards, they were mixed into various topics, and instruction could be based on classroom resources or teacher-led discussion. Creating materials to go home as homework could require teachers to create content and teaching instructions for parents. The outcome was that the committee agreed that there would not be a voting item on the agenda for tonight's meeting. There will be an item under board forum for discussion and a non-roll call vote to have the curriculum committee explore alternatives to instruction related to the controversial topics, which includes anything that could be deemed controversial from the 2014 standards or the new 2020 standards. Thank you.
Discussion?
I got one. So I think it's important that the board as a whole bases our decisions. Decisions are only made on the interest of the total school system and not just special interest groups, right? But my issue with this is not on a moral one. I'm probably more socially liberal than a lot of people. It's the procedure. So correct me if I'm wrong. This survey was sent to 2,200 families or people. 120 people total responded. That's 5.4% response rate. Of that, only 33% of those people responded with strong favorability to this. So 33% of 5.4% is about 1.8%. So it's disingenuous to say that it was an overwhelming approval of this. And based on your opt-out numbers, we had 45 opt-outs, but only 39.6 people basically strongly were in favor of this, if you look at the math. So there's also inconsistent teacher engagement with parents. A healthy portion of the emails that I've seen so far being on the board relates to this topic. So there's no quantifiable cost for the intangibles, right? How much time is it taking from teachers? How much time is being taken from teachers having to respond to parents? I just think it's worth revisiting as a curriculum committee we chose to push this through with 1.8% approval of the respondents. So it's really incumbent upon the new curriculum committee and to you, Ms. Fox, to come up with something different or at least revisit it. I think that's only fair.
And when we're revisiting it, I think that because it's new, obviously there are kinks in the system and as to how the rollout occurred. And again, I've seen a lot of emails about some of them very angry, some of them just questioning various different things. with the inconsistency of the communication and the lack of availability to materials for the parents to actually make an informed decision to be able to opt out related to that. I'm looking at some teacher notes from even the 12th grade curriculum right now, and I'm a little bit horrified by how they choose to refer to women or girls, to be honest with you, with that, and that's a 12th grader. And if my daughter ever came home and referred to me in such a way, there would be hell to pay, to be honest with you. So, you know.
Tell us what you're referring to there.
Yes, in the 12th grade curriculum, the teacher's notes, I will quote, "Language is really important, and we have intentionally been very careful about our language throughout the curriculum. You may notice language throughout the curriculum that seems less familiar, using pronouns they instead of her, him," which I have no problem with, using a gender-neutral name in scenarios and role plays, and referring to someone with a vulva versus a girl or a woman. I have to be honest with you, as a woman, I'm very, very offended to be reduced to being referred to as someone with a vulva, to be honest with you. So, and I can imagine that I'm not the only woman in this room even that probably feels somewhat offended by being reduced to that type of terminology. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed.
Ms. McCune?
So my comments are going to be more about process and how we go about dealing with curriculum. I mean, having been around for a long time, we always are assessing curriculum each year, and we get feedback, we do surveys. When a new, whatever it is, a new course or changes in the curriculum go into effect, we don't change it mid-year once the teachers have made all their plans and they've, developed the curriculum. The curriculum writing goes on over the summer. There's a process. So I'm all for getting feedback on the new health curriculum and how it went this year. I want to hear from the teachers. If there were any particular units that people had concerns about, what were those units? That would be something that the curriculum committee should look at, as the year, goes on. I'm completely opposed to changing something mid-year, and I'm also completely opposed to not teaching something that we're supposed to be teaching in the schools. If we want to look at the opt-out process and say we could fine-tune that, or the communication, that's a completely separate thing to me, and that's fine. If the curriculum committee wants to look at, how that went, and any changes, maybe even mid-year, if the communication could be improved mid-year, that's fine. But I'm completely opposed with changing whether or not we're teaching something that we said we're going to teach in the middle of the year. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Mead?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off what Ms. McCune said, we should be true to the fact that there should be an opt-out option, right? And when we try to approach that, whether it could be done mid-year, if it was a true opt-out option, then it could be a discrete part of the curriculum that could be separated even mid-year or as a separate homework assignment or something. When we find out that it's interwoven and embedded through different parts of the course and it couldn't really be pulled out, I think that at a minimum we should take a look at whether or not it could be discrete enough and either taught at the end of the year, taught as a homework assignment, taught as some other portion of the school year, but I think that was the most disappointing to learn.
How interwoven is this curriculum in classes other than sex ed and health? One of the things that you were saying, or that I heard in the notes that you were reading off, is that it might be intertwined in other areas.
I think Nick, so I'll jump in, but Nick had a good jigsaw puzzle blender example during the meeting that I thought was actually, helpful to understand how the standards are written, and they're not just here's the 10 things we taught last year, here's the new things, 11 and 12, right? So I think, that's how I understood it.
The other thing I would add is that it varies quite a lot across the grades. We have some grades where there's no new content, nothing was introduced or added, and you have other grades where it kind of comes down to what is on the list, right? To your point, what's on the list. And so it sort of depends on your feeling about what's controversial and what should be teased out. And so that's part of my response, right? Which standards are we talking about? Because they might be embedded in multiple units. They might not. If we're just talking about a couple of the main items that have been discussed a number of times, there's really one new thing in second grade. That's not that hard to do. There's nothing in kindergarten. There's nothing in first grade. So you have to kind of go down the list, and it varies quite a bit. Certainly, there's a lot more of the family life and sex ed in 8th grade, in 7th grade, and as you go up the years. So it's just a little bit more complex than saying, can we just tease it out and make it a homework assignment?
How much of this how much of the standards are being embedded in other courses other than sex ed and health?
Well, there aren't any health standards embedded in any other courses.
Okay.
But there's certainly topics that people would find equivalent.
Okay.
So there's no health standards in other courses.
Mrs. Weitzman, waiting.
Thank you. All right, I've written a bunch of stuff down. I'm going to go through point by point. Starting with the first is, I'm really disappointed at the lack of transparency on how this was handled. As somebody who was curriculum chair until today, I had no idea until I walked into a meeting that this was even something you guys were talking about. And for a group who've talked and railed at us for a year about transparency, we all should have known that this was something that you guys wanted to talk about, and then we could have talked about, well, what the process is and how we do it. And having an emergency meeting that half the board doesn't know about on a topic that is so controversial to the district, in my opinion, shouldn't have happened. But it did, and we're moving past it. But I hope, I hope it was just an oversight and that it doesn't happen again. The second thing is, in terms of numbers, I wrote down, yes, you had 45 requests, but when you whittle that down, it's 27 students. I think we have about 4,800 students in this district. So regardless of who answered the survey, who didn't answer the survey, who was positive about the survey, who wasn't, that speaks volumes. 27 kids so far have opted out of 4,800. And you want to reinvent the wheel for 27 students. So that's number 2. Number 3, this notion of stigma. Well, what about the kids who they leave the classroom for speech therapy? They leave the classroom for OT. They leave the classroom to go to math resource room. They leave the classroom to go to reading resource room. They leave the classroom to go see the psychologist. Nobody's concerned about the stigma of that. And part of that is because the kids are in and out of the room all day long, and they don't pay attention to that. It just, to say that the only children that are stigmatized are these 27 kids who have to go someplace else, I don't buy it. I think sometimes we project our own feelings onto our kids, and I think our kids handle this stuff way better than any of us ever do. The other thing is, I have no problem with, as Ms. McKeon said, going back, looking at it, seeing is there some other better way to make the opt-out work better. But I do take issue with this idea that the information should just be taught at home by parents. This is a state mandate. We do not get to choose which state mandates we will follow and which we won't. We are expected to follow them all. And it doesn't matter what another district is doing. And if they're not following the state mandates, well, what potential penalties are they open to? Does their QSAC rating possibly go down, which can affect our school rankings? Are there penalties? Are there action plans? Could we lose funding? Those are all things that can happen when you don't abide by state mandates. And I think that the teachers and Ms. Fox and the supervisors did an amazing job taking all of the feedback and spent all this time during the summer to put together a curriculum that is being rolled out this year. Does it mean it's perfect? By no means. Does it mean we should look back into it and see what's working and what's working? Of course, I think with any new curriculum you do that. But I don't think we just say, we're just going to make it a homework that goes home. Most parents don't want extra homework. They just don't. There's enough homework that these kids have. And most parents don't want necessarily to be the ones that teach this stuff. They want the teacher. They want the expert. So that's the other thing. The other thing I want to comment on is, because I do have 2 high schoolers, I have gotten incredibly detailed emails from my kids' health teachers this year, telling me the dates that they would be doing things, telling me when my window was to opt out, telling me exactly where to go find the information. So I think that the expectation that that's not good enough is asking almost too much. I mean, we have to have enough trust that if it's really something that is so, I hate to use the word repugnant, but that's kind of what you're saying. You think that this stuff is not something that should be taught in school. Then you have to take the responsibility to go and read the information that's being sent home to you. If an email comes and it says, go look at this curriculum, go look at if it's something that is really concerning to you. You know, we expect our kids to be so responsible. Well, we have a responsibility too. If it's a part of the curriculum that you're not comfortable with, and we've been talking about this ad nauseum, then take that responsibility and go look at the process. When do you have to opt out? What needs to be done? Reach out to the teacher, like those 45 families did. Ask the questions that you have, and then make an informed decision. But don't expect that every other family has to fall in line to your want. It just, I don't think that that's reasonable. And I don't think it's reasonable to say that the teachers should suddenly have to rewrite and figure out all of this information as soon as possible. And the last thing I'll stop at this, I think is utterly the craziest thing. So the 2014 standards can be taught, and the kids, there's no stigma with those kids getting that and opting out. But once we hit the 2020 standards, well, those kids, there's a stigma with that, so now they can't opt out in school. Now it's got, I mean, it just, when I start hearing all this, I'm like, it's absurd. It's just absurd. And again, I have no problem if you want to talk about this at curriculum, you want to roll out some ideas about, you know, how can we make it better? How can we make the opt-out easier? How can we find, maybe you want to survey parents again, now that we will have had a year of health. How did it go for your child? What were your feelings on it? I have no problem with that, but I don't think you throw, what's the expression, throwing the baby out with the bathwater? I wouldn't support that, and I wouldn't support saying we're not going to teach a state mandate.
I take... Here's what I take. Here's the... Thank you. I agree with most of what you said. Redoing that, but you can't gloss over the fact that the survey was poorly responded to, and we reinvented the wheel for a poorly responded survey. So I'm in favor of redoing the survey, because obviously the survey was designed poorly to get that kind of response. So I'm happy to let's redo it. It's been a year. Let's make it, you know, mailed to them, something that's a little bit more definitive. But we can't have a 5% response rate and accept it as a valid survey. You just can't do it.
Mr. Chipper.
Yes, I was going to reflect some of the remarks. Ms. White, as you said, there are state mandatory curriculum like chemistry, math, whatever. Yes, but even the state recognized that this is a special kind of curriculum because it specifically states that has to have the opt-out. So even the states recognize it is a different type of curriculum. Reflecting to Ms. Fox's point that it is going to be taught by March 1st, most of the controversial curriculum. This is why we think that doing something as soon as possible, as soon as we can, turning to homework would be something needed. And then also, I completely agree with Ms. McKeon. We can absolutely go back and revisit all the health curriculum, including 2014 and 2020, for the summer when we have more time, if we think that we should do that.
I'm just going to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I know you want the last word, Keith, so I have to jump in. But I guess if the survey was the problem, then we need to kind of rerun the survey, right? So we have to start from something that if we're looking at, you know, response rates to the survey, that's what we tried to do. I think, and then had the BT Connect meeting and doing all that stuff. So if the implementation problem was based on the survey, then before we go to a new proposal, then we would need to rerun the survey, I think, to flesh out, what the community wants, right? And if you're not generating a good response rate, then what's the fallback plan, right? So I'm just saying, and then I don't think saying we reinvented the wheel is entirely accurate, because I think that we're doing what happened last year. It's if you find something objectionable, you can follow the state, law and opt your child out, right? So like Kirsten was saying, like I read this topic in senior health, I found it objectionable. You can opt your student out of that. That's kind of the process and how it works, and I think that's how it's been working. It's just, now because of the new standards, it's, communicating more about, more often about what topics are coming up. So I think it's kind of the same. It's just maybe there's, more topics that kids might opt out of. But that's the other thing. Then we'd have to, either the 27 or 28 that opted out, we have to tease out the kids that have been opting out previously to figure out what the true number of opt-outs is this year based on the 2020 material.
Ms. Fox. If it's all right, I'd just like to say something about the survey comment. We survey typically, we frequently survey program evaluations, courses. Mr. Colmer's getting ready to hit you all with a math survey because they're looking at the math program 612. Response rates are always low. It's difficult. You're not required to take the surveys. It's input, it's feedback, and we use it as a part of our analysis. This is very normal. With health in particular, there is an actual requirement to get community input in the area of health that it is different and above what's required in all of the other areas. So the way that the survey was designed and administered and approached was an opportunity for people to weigh in before we wrote the curriculum. It wasn't a vote that said, are you in favor of the standards or not? It wasn't a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It was an opportunity to weigh in. And yeah, it was low, and so I'm not opposed to resurveying. We would often resurvey at the end of a first year of implementation and do everything we could to increase the response rates now that people have experienced it. But to characterize it as like not being something that was worth being based on, you have to think about what the intention was, and it was really to provide the community with input. Another way we could have done it would have just been to have an open forum. Say, come in if you want to tell us what you think. But because of the volume of standards and the volume of content, and yeah, we had the BT Connect meeting where people could also come in, and we took notes and incorporated that feedback in as well. So we really did feedback twice, all to help us finalize a product that might, make most people satisfied, right? That's difficult for me to conclude that it was not, that the survey itself was completely flawed. Yeah, the response rate was low, but it served the purpose that it was intended to give people the opportunity to weigh in who wanted to weigh in.
Ms. White.
I just want to say, I just want to point out, and this actually came up, in our ethics training, what you're seeing here is healthy debate. We clearly don't all agree on the same thing, but I don't want people walking out of this meeting and being like, they don't get along with each other. They all have, it's okay that we have different points of view, and it's okay we're hashing this out. We'll get to some, hopefully, place that, we all can agree upon, but it's going to be a process. But I don't think you're as familiar as seeing, us have such different points of view. And that sounds to me like, yes, I get very heated and upset and agitated when we're talking about this, but that doesn't mean that I'm unable or they're unable to listen to that other point of view. And I just want to be very clear, because I know when I do my stuff, I'm there. It's something I'm very passionate about, and in terms of the kids and their education. But I don't want the takeaway to be that there's something wrong with this kind of a dialogue.
I couldn't agree more with the health
Well said.
Kirsten.
Yeah, just one more question. Maybe, and this is for the audience, or and also for me. But when the states lay out the standard, they don't dictate the curriculum that you choose and how you actually execute that. So my understanding is we have a lot of leeway into what we can do to make it more palatable for the community as a whole. So that's what I'd like to actually see be reviewed, and maybe, during the survey process, asking, where did you think that the curriculum goes over the top? Because like I said, someone with a vulva, that goes over the top for me no matter what age it's being taught at, because I just find it disrespectful. But maybe it gives the parents another opportunity to really look into all the curriculum that their children have learned during this year, whether they opted them in or opted them out, and say, here's what I really had a problem with, and we collect that feedback before any curriculum writing and review gets done for the summer, because otherwise we're going to be here next year doing the same damn thing.
Yes, and as far as to the legality of it, I think that's where we would draw Mr. Crute into the process and get his thoughts on the matter. I just want to talk a little bit about input, because yes, the community's input is vital here. And from someone who's been at every board meeting for the last several years, at the BT Connects on this topic, knocked on hundreds of doors running for this position, which you can't get a more randomized sample than that. It's divided. The community is split on this. And at the end of the day, I feel that I am a community representative, up here for the best interests of the students by representing the community. And with the community divided on this, I think, in my view, it's incumbent upon us to take a more cautious approach. And to say this is a settled issue, well, no, it's not a settled issue. The issue was brought up during last fall, and our positions on it were very public. At the same time, we're listening to existing board members, taking input, and trying to encompass all points of view and come to a solution that it's not going to please everybody. I guarantee you whatever we wind up doing is not going to please everybody. But we're going to try to do what we see in our view as being the best way to handle this and be respectful of each family's individual values. It's a touchy subject. To that end, I think directing the curriculum committee to explore alternative methods of delivering this instruction is completely appropriate. I recognize the hard work that's already gone into it, but from my point of view, that does not mean the work is done. Mr.
Do we
Amin.
make a motion to?
Mr. Amin.
Make a motion to have the curriculum committee explore alternatives to direct to teach the controversial topics in different formats.
Second the motion.
Since it's not a resolution, I think
Well, that's a motion.
Sure.
Can I just ask, are we asking the curriculum committee to just go back and look at, there's a big difference between saying you want the curriculum to go look at alternate methods versus you want the curriculum committee to go back and look at what has been done this year, look at some of the feedback that they've gotten, see if there are any revisions that can be made. I mean, that's very different than saying, looking at alternate ways to deliver.
Well, alternate ways to deliver, because it includes having it discrete enough where an opt-out is a real option. So right now it's embedded, so it's having the curriculum committee explore how these 2020 standards can be delivered in alternative ways.
And my understanding is during the normal course of review for curriculum after the first year is that there is a survey and a review of that curriculum anyway, right?
Yeah, but the motion is not to review.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's part, I don't think the motion needs to be made because that's standard procedure. This is a special motion to go back and look at alternative methods to deliver this curriculum in a less objectionable way.
As I heard, the motion was for the curriculum committee to explore alternative methods.
Start exploring it, and encompasses everything that has to be done to implement anything new that we were going to do. It shouldn't be limiting.
That's the issue, is that, like, the homework model was the thing that was discussed, right? So then we talked about alternative ways to do it. The only other one we heard was kind of like the end of the school year, put everything on the last day, or everything in one day, whether it's the last day or whatever. But, like, those were the things. So, like, should we just say specifically, like, look at those?
I'm saying look at everything.
No, how about we make a motion to make the 2020 standards deliverable by homework? Right, doesn't that?
Well, that's at least specific if I know what I'm voting on, because I don't know what I'm voting on when it just says explore alternate ways.
Well, I guess the issue is if it can't be delivered by homework for whatever reason, do we not want them to consider delivering it on the last day?
No.
No, so just say those two things. Like unless somebody can come up with another alternative, then we can add that to the list. But like, let's just, rather than say alternative ways, I mean, yeah, it's a motion, right? We need to know.
But wait a second, you're asking for a motion on something that, we don't even know if we could do, to say we're going to have the standards be taught as homework. We don't even know if that is, what are we going to say, the chemistry standards can be taught by parents? I'm saying, we don't know, can a standard, it's what teachers are mandated to teach. Is it legal? Is it allowable to send home standards to be delivered by parents? So before you say we're going to make a motion to get this, we don't know if that's allowed.
Well, that's going to be part of what we're exploring.
Yeah, the motion was to explore, the way the motion was stated, there is a motion on the floor right now, and then you can discuss the motion. But the motion on the floor right now is for the curriculum committee, and I apologize, I didn't write down the exact word, but the motion was for the curriculum committee to explore alternative methods of providing the instruction.
For delivering the instruction, exactly for the reason Ms. White said. The other thing I want to remind everybody is, we're not voting on changing anything. We're just having the curriculum committee discuss. So if they come up with a third option, why shouldn't they talk about it? We're not voting on changing anything. We're not voting on implementing anything. We're just voting on whether or not the curriculum committee should discuss this topic and revisit it to see how it can be delivered in different ways.
So why can't we just say we'll send it back to the curriculum to talk about what has transpired this year and any changes that they might foresee for the future? Why does it have to be we're going to send it back to come up with alternate? I think you're getting too many steps ahead.
Because I think it's clear that we have to explore alternatives.
And there is a time pressure.
Well, I don't think there's a time pressure because everything is, as Ms. Fox says, pretty much done by March 1st. So we're really talking about the curriculum for September. That's what we're talking about. So we have time to talk about curriculum that's not going to be implemented until September.
But I think we're also looking for alternatives to have some of the more objectionable curriculum being taught differently before March 1st.
It's January 23rd. There's not going to be anything that's changed before March 1st.
I would add K to 8.
Can I just jump in? The point of this is to direct the curriculum committee to explore alternative options, including but not exclusive to homework of delivering this curriculum. There's no hard time frame on it. We're trying to get feedback from the curriculum committee, from Mr. Crute, from the staff, from everybody, and do this in a stepwise and thoughtful way. So I think we're going a little bit off the beam here. I think there's a motion on the table. We should vote on it.
Yeah, what's the motion?
The motion is to have the curriculum committee explore different options to deliver the 2020 controversial standards.
Let's do a roll call vote on that.
Mr. Amin?
Yes.
Mr. Molinari?
Yes.
Mr. Rascio?
Yes.
Ms. McEwen?
No.
Ms. White?
No.
Mr. Salmon?
No.
Ms. Light?
Yes.
And Ms. Chipak?
Yes.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion carries.
That'll be discussed further in curriculum committee. Just want to answer one other question that came up during public comment. There was a question, and I might get it a little bit wrong, whether any votes were taken before we had our ethics training. Well, the reorganization vote, for one, and just whatever routine matters we voted on last week. But that was it. We had their training today, and we're up here tonight. So just to answer that individual's question. Mr. McCarron, anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So the students left. Good for them. Good for them that they were here. That was great. and good for them that they took the opportunity to go home and do whatever they needed to do. Certainly, I'll follow up with Dr. Lazovic and ask him to make some time to talk to the students that were here about their concerns with regard to the bathrooms and mice. Without going into great detail, I can tell you that I took a bathroom tour of every single bathroom in this building that wasn't an individual staff type bathroom, single, a onesie, so to speak. All of the girls' rooms and all of the boys' rooms and all of the locker room bathrooms. There are a lot of bathrooms in this school. It was quite the tour. I estimated the individual fixtures as toilets, urinals, sinks, paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, and toilet paper dispensers as fixtures of the bathrooms. It was not a audit of all of these fixtures to that degree that might meet a CPA standards, but in rough numbers, I would say of the bathrooms that I visited, probably about 90% of those fixtures, if you counted them all up, were as they should be in terms of working and functioning. Certainly there are issues that we have sometimes with plastic dispensers, so we had some conversation about the types of dispensers that we use for paper towels and also for toilet paper. Might the material that we use in those dispensers be a little more durable? Some of the plastic dispensers are a little flimsy and maybe don't stand up too well to institutional use. So we talked about that aspect. We also looked at the fact that the paper towel dispensers are something that were installed in response to COVID. They're electronic, they are touchless, and they work really nice when they're working right and they're not damaged. But they do generate litter, which is why traditionally in recent years pre-COVID, many school bathrooms had installed electronic blowing hand dryers, and I would recommend that we consider looking at that again, given what we've learned about COVID. At the time, the margin was supposedly better to use paper towel dispensers with regard to COVID. I don't know that that's as big a concern as what I saw with paper towels. And I didn't even see it necessarily as a big litter issue, like they were all over the floor. There was some here and there. There are big barrel garbage cans in the bathrooms, and I thought the kids were being pretty good, actually, about getting the paper towels into the garbage can, from what I could see. But certainly, it does represent a attractive nuisance for somebody that might want to use the paper towel in a way that is littering or being used in a bad way. So we will work on that with the facilities guys about how we might be able to transition out some of those ideas going forward. You don't want me to finish my bathroom analysis?
Whenever you're done, I was looking to add a
I want to
student
serve
comment.
on the bathroom committee with Russ. So we have several students, and we can get them together with Russ maybe. But I mean, it was great. I had a lot of fun and got a lot of looks as to why the guy in the suit was going in and out of all the bathrooms. But it was good. It was good. It was really good. I wanted to see it for myself because I keep hearing about this, and we can do better, certainly, and try to make some things work a little better. We're also dealing with another byproduct of COVID are the electronic faucets, thank you. And some of the sensors there take a little bit more maintenance. So, getting parts for some of these things is a little more time consuming, and they they need a little bit more TLC. If they have batteries and electronic switchboards, they work great when they're working, but they're a little harder to maintain. So there's that as well. So I want the public to know that, we are taking the kids seriously, and taking a look at how we can try to make things better. And I care, so I took a walk, and it was really good. So did you want to jump in on anything with the bathrooms?
I did, actually. I'd like to add a comment. I did
Sure.
see you when you were doing the bathroom tour. I think I walked by you. But
I wasn't using every bathroom in the school, just so you know.
So I feel like it's, from a student perspective, it's important that I communicate this to the public right now as a student representative. And we've all been pulling our hair out. I meet with Dr. Lazovic regularly. He actually called a meeting earlier this year, like right as we got back to school. He's like, hey, there's vandalism happening again. We're going to have to shut down the bathrooms, after a repair guy had worked on them for the entire break. And in searching through my student government drive for like my notes from these meetings, I found like a 6-page essay that the student government, the 4 of us elected for this year, had written expressing our like concerns with the bathrooms and our anger. But it's really not as simple of a problem as it may seem to the public, or it did seem to us at first. Currently at school, we have monitors at every bathroom, sign-out sheets in order to leave class, lanyards left outside of bathrooms. We have limited number of students allowed in at each time. Phones need to remain in classrooms to prevent like TikTok trends or like broadcasting of this vandalism. And the only other alternative that we can come up with, that we've talked to Dr. Lazovic about, is to have a monitor go in after every student uses the bathroom, to only allow 1 kid at a time, and that's really not feasible at the moment. And the bathrooms are being shut down because they are not usable. Sinks don't work, paper towels, dispensers, hand dryers, soap dispensers, they're being ripped off the walls, toilets don't flush. And the thing that we did not understand at first, but it's not a privilege that's being taken away from the students as punishment. These bathrooms are simply not usable. And like children, and the PAC bathroom, that's one that's a little bit different, but it's been set aside so that children with special needs at Ridge can use it and the public can use it. The other thing I did want to mention, it may be true that 90% of the fixtures are working, but like you also said, the sinks are temperamental. So right now, the 400 bathroom is shut down. Right. The 600 bathroom is shut down because 3 little devices in those bathrooms are not functioning. Right. We've talked to Dr. Lazovic. He said, he's communicated that maybe a second maintenance person could help to expedite like fixing these bathrooms. And like I said before, we're working student governments to push out flyers. We're sending out a Ridge report to communicate the questions of students, but really it's not a simple problem to address, and we're all incredibly frustrated about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you recognizing that, Kyle, because it's not a simple problem. And even in the the week and a half or 2 weeks that transpired since I went on the tour, something else has happened, and literally, it's a constant cycle of trying to keep up with things. And I'm working with Beth. I'm sorry, Ms. Brooks. With Ms. Brooks in terms of, getting some of these components that we need from some of the manufacturers that, they have these things can be a little glitchy. And I have the facilities guys actually calling the manufacturers and complaining and saying, listen, you guys got to help us out. This stuff is like less than 3 years old, some of it. So, everybody's aware of it. We're all focused on it. And I appreciate the teamwork effort here to try to make it better. And, one of the things, too, with respect to vandalism is trying to build the culture with the student body that, hey, these are your bathrooms, right? I mean, when, I don't know. I don't know what the story is in terms of, like, who is doing what. But, that aspect of, ownership and building ownership and, doing things like little painting projects. I saw some of the bathrooms obviously had student art. Kids had actually painted in some of the bathrooms. And quite honestly, I was like, wow, this looks really great. So taking that approach and trying to build that ownership of the bathrooms and make them look nice and invest in it, I think maybe perhaps then, kids will be really sensitive to peers that they find out potentially are the perpetrators to the brick in the toilet or whatever the situation might be. And, like, hey, you gotta call each other out, maybe police each other a little bit. That could help. And maybe if you feel that ownership towards, hey, this is my house, kind of attitude, maybe that would help. And that would be, one of the things I would encourage among the students, like, hey, maybe we could do some things, beautification. I've seen all kinds of amazing stuff that the kids have done in the school, or parents have gotten involved in painting artwork on the walls and murals and things like that. that could be a way to get a little bit of that investment, like make it look nice. And then when, you find out or you hear through the grapevine that so-and-so went in and made a mess of the space that you put your, blood, sweat, and tears into, can motivate you to be a little bit, willing to try to get involved in saying, hey, enough, So that could be another angle. But anyway, so thanks for the kids for coming tonight and talking about that some more. We are, I did ask Dr. Lasvik, is Ms. Nelson still here? I don't know if she's still here. Yep, she's still here. I did ask Dr. Lasvik to reach out to you more about the drop-off. One of the things I observed out there, I talked to Mr. Perrin about was, and actually I think we've got the town helping us look at a crosswalk. That was one of the concerns I had out there by the 700 wing over that way, getting a crosswalk across the driving lane to the parking area. So we'll work on getting that done. And then you covered the question about the training on the ethics. I was going to say the same thing. That's all I had. Thanks. Sorry for the long-winded thing on the bathrooms, but I've been hearing so much about it. I was like, I'm just going on tour, So I'm with you. Keep working at it.
Have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Light? Mr. Rascio? All in favor? All right, all right. Yeah, we're good.